After much effort over generations, humans finally managed to create true magic. It wasn't something consciously desired, but an inevitable advancement. Then came the idea of connecting magic to blood, making it hereditary. With this, they began searching for ways to transfer this power to the future. Over time, magical abilities began to manifest in people. Since blood is inherited, the creators protected their achievements by ensuring that magic was passed down through the bloodline. The country of Ustia is known as the Nation of Magic. There, the nobility uses magic to defend the people against invaders and monsters. In exchange for this protective role, they maintain a high status and significant privileges. Among the magical nobility of the country, the House of Marquis Friendbrid stands out. Hermes, a baby from the family, is next in line for the title. From an early age, he demonstrated immense magical power, being recognized as a prodigy. In the past, the Friendbrid family held the title of Duke, but lost territory and prestige due to having no heirs skilled in magic, being downgraded to Marquis. Considered a declining lineage, all hopes were placed in Hermes, treated as a miracle destined to restore the family's greatness. 4 years later, Hermes eagerly runs to his father to tell him that he was praised in his magic lessons. The teacher said he has the greatest potential among students his age. Proud, his father declares that he will be the greatest mage the family has ever had. Hermes is praised by everyone around him who place high expectations on him. His father dreams that he will be as powerful as the legendary kings of old or their great ancestors. His peers admire him, and teachers eagerly await to see just how much hereditary magic he truly has. Hermes listens to it all with confidence and determination. Chris, Hermes' brother, is constantly compared and belittled by his father for not showing the same magical ability. While Hermes is admired as the example, Chris is called pathetic. The hereditary magic, or lineage magic, is explained as a power passed down through blood, further increasing the pressure on Chris. Hermes excitedly talks to Katya, his childhood friend and heir to another duchy, telling her that lineage magic is exclusive to the nobility and far more powerful than ordinary magic. Katya, however, is more interested in playing than listening to explanations. Still, Hermes continues enthusiastically talking about magic. Hermes reveals his dream of becoming a strong and heroic mage, like the legendary characters he admires. Katya recognizes how much he loves magic and encourages him, believing he will succeed. Over time, Hermes continues growing with this goal in mind until he turns 7. During Hermes' magical evaluation, the examiner reveals that he doesn't sense any trace of lineage magic in him, something that should have manifested by now. The revelation shocks everyone, especially Hermes, who is confronted with the fact that he doesn't possess the power everyone expected. The kingdom's evaluator confirms that Hermes has no magical ability, 0 aptitude. The news shocks his father, who can't believe that the family's heir has failed. Others present lament, saying Hermes was not favored by God. It is explained that the amount of magic inherited depends on the purity of the blood, but this is determined by fate, not the person's worth. Hermes' father, filled with frustration, falls into despair as he realizes that all his plans to recover the Duke title through his son were in vain. Consumed by rage, he calls Hermes useless and violently attacks him, completely ignoring the boy's shock and suffering. After assaulting Hermes, his father locks him up and humiliates him without mercy, calling him worthless scum and saying he should throw him into the streets. He expresses disgust even for breathing the same air as his son, leaving Hermes shocked and desperate, calling for him in vain. Desperate, Hermes begs to continue trying, promising to work harder and do whatever it takes to become the mage his father dreamed of. But his father cruelly rejects him, calling him a defective product and stating that without lineage magic, he will never be the son he expected. To him, Hermes was abandoned by the god of the stars, making him unworthy. Hermes' father declares that he is not a gift from God, but the spawn of a demon. He says he will only free him if, by miracle, he manages to use lineage magic, something he himself doubts. As he leaves and locks the cell, Hermes is left alone, marking the moment when his life changes completely. Imprisoned and discouraged, Hermes reflects on the days that have passed and fears he may never escape since he cannot use lineage magic. Just when everything seemed lost, his brother Chris appears before the cell, calling him with a mysterious smile. Hermes, surprised, recognizes him immediately. Chris says he came to give magic lessons to his poor little brother and reveals that he knows everything. He then demonstrates his own powers with enthusiasm, boasting that he is chosen by God. With an intense smile, he activates his magic in a theatrical and powerful manner, leaving Hermes stunned by the scene. Chris attacks Hermes with his own magic, saying this might awaken his brother's dormant power. He does so with a cruel smile, as if enjoying himself. Hermes is thrown against the wall, injured, while Chris watches him with contempt and calls him pathetic. Chris reveals that he is merely punishing Hermes for ignoring him while being the father's favorite. Hermes, hurt, recognizes that he never thought about how his brother felt. He was so happy to be praised and learn magic that he didn't realize how much Chris was being left out. Now he feels the weight of it. Chris makes it clear that he will take Hermes' place as the heir and become the great mage he always wanted to be. While Hermes cries silently, imprisoned and humiliated, Chris laughs and leaves. Soon after, a girl approaches the cell and asks if he is okay. Katya finds Hermes injured and imprisoned, realizes that his father and Chris were responsible, and is shocked by the situation. Saddened that she cannot help him with healing magic, she holds his hand and apologizes, saying that even with magic, no one should be treated like this. Hermes, resigned, calls himself defective and says that just being able to eat is enough. But Katya interrupts him firmly, saying that she believes in him. She says that he wants magic more than anyone, works too hard, and that there's no way someone like him wouldn't have lineage magic. She promises to never give up on him, no matter what happens. Katya encourages Hermes firmly, saying that he will become a great mage and stand by her again. Motivated by her words, Hermes decides not to give up. He remembers that he can leave if he manages to use lineage magic, and with a renewed smile, promises to keep trying. He thanks Katya for returning his hope. Katya realizes she has been discovered, but before leaving, declares that she hates seeing loved ones imprisoned. With determination, she promises Hermes that he will get out of there, swearing firmly that it is an absolute promise. Hermes smiles with renewed hope, marking the beginning of a change. Even suffering in that horrible place, Hermes spent his days intensely dedicated to discovering his magic. His willpower to escape and Katya's constant support motivated him. These two things sustained his spirit and kept him steady in his quest. Even after 3 years of effort, nothing changed for Hermes. When he sees Katya again, he gets excited, but is soon surprised by the news that she will no longer return. With a sad expression, she apologizes, leaving Hermes confused and shocked. Katya reveals that she will be forced to marry Astur, the second prince, known as the greatest living user of lineage magic and the main candidate for the throne. She states that, as an heir to a duchy, she considers it an honor and has no reason to refuse. Hermes, surprised, questions if she will really accept. Katya tries to delay the wedding for at least half a year, but Chris appears with guards and cuts off any chance of that happening. He explains that thanks to her engagement to Prince Astur, the Friendbrid family has been accepted back into high nobility. Hermes and Katya are surprised by Chris's coldness and conviction. Katya explodes with anger upon learning that the prince refuses to see Hermes. Chris, now arrogant and proud, reveals that he has become Prince Astur's right-hand man thanks to his talent. He states that the entire Friendbrid family serves the prince, and that keeping Hermes imprisoned is a direct order from him, making it clear that the decision will not be reversed. Prince Astur declares that he has no use for people without magical aptitude and orders Hermes' elimination. Chris, obedient, commands the guards to take Hermes. Katya tries to stop him, outraged by the cruelty, but is restrained. As he is dragged away, Hermes calls out to Katya, who promises to negotiate with the prince to save him. While Katya desperately screams for Hermes, he reflects silently, wondering how he could earn his father's love and God's favor. Abandoned and suffering, his heart cries out for recognition, even though he doesn't understand what he did to deserve so much contempt. Hermes wakes up in a strange, dirty, and deteriorated place, surrounded by people in misery. Confused, he wonders where he is and feels the suspicious gaze of everyone around, increasing his sense of fear and loneliness. Hermes is approached by a group of men with suspicious smiles who ask if he is alone. Realizing the danger, he panics and tries to flee, overwhelmed by fear. Desperate, he thinks of Katya and wishes someone would save him as he feels the terror of being completely defenseless. Hermes tries to escape but is grabbed by the men, who mock him for walking alone as a noble. One of them says that now he will stay with them, while another holds him by force. Hermes struggles desperately, begging to be released, but is surrounded and at a clear disadvantage. The aggressors discuss among themselves what to do with Hermes. whether they should sell him or enslave him. They conclude that, being weak and worthless, even a ransom isn't worth it. Consumed by hatred for the nobility, they decide to beat him brutally, saying it's best to kill him. Hermes, on the floor and injured, faces the horror of human cruelty without being able to react. Hermes, hurt and desperate, wonders if all his effort and suffering were in vain. As one of the aggressors approaches with a knife and a cruel smile, he feels that his life may end there, even though he had dedicated himself so much in the hope of being recognized. Amidst the desperation, Hermes thinks, "I don't want it to end like this." At the moment Hermes is about to be attacked with a knife, a lightning strike hits the aggressors, interrupting the violence. A powerful woman appears in the background, walking firmly and ordering them to stop. Hermes, injured on the ground, watches in surprise as the thugs, frightened, look at her. The woman observes the scene with contempt. She says she was in a good mood when she returned home, but now finds a group of adults beating a child. Indignant, she calls the situation disgusting and says they ruined her day. Hermes watches her, surprised and confused by her imposing presence. With a sharp and confident gaze, the woman says she will have fun beating those cowards. The thugs react with anger and disbelief, shouting at her to get out of the way and activating their magic circles. But she remains firm, facing them head-on without fear. With a single movement, the woman defeats all the aggressors with crushing force. They are thrown far away while she remains calm and elegant at the center of the destruction. Hermes watches in shock as she, smiling sarcastically, comments on how scary it all was. Hermes watches in shock as the woman casts multiple powerful spells at once: fire, ice, and wind. He wonders how this is possible since normally a person can only use one type of lineage magic. The power of the spell destroys everything around, and he realizes that, even though it's ordinary magic, her power is absurd. Hermes watches in shock as everyone around recognizes the woman's overwhelming strength. With an intimidating presence and absurd magical power, she is called the Walking Catastrophe. Her name is Rose, the feared witch of the skies. Rose, irritated by the underestimation, mocks the men, saying it took them too long to realize who she really is. She scolds them for judging someone who uses ordinary magic as weak and prepares to show them her true power, promising a demonstration as a gift. Rose begins chanting a powerful spell, invoking a giant magic circle behind her. With solemn and firm words, she announces that she will show the magic worthy of her position, using a power that surpasses the boundaries between heaven and earth. The atmosphere charges with energy while the enemies watch in fear. Rose activates her powerful lineage magic called Hlidskjalf, releasing an intense light that dominates the area. The enemies around her are struck head-on, frozen in place with no chance to react. The power she manifests makes it clear that she is on a level far beyond the others. Asserting her position as an elite mage, Rose looks at the fallen thugs and makes it clear that she hasn't killed them. She merely neutralized them. With contempt, she says they're not worth the effort to dirty her hands. She then approaches Hermes and assures him that he's safe now. The boy, surprised and relieved, gazes at the woman who just saved him with such ease and power. Hermes shouts to warn Rose about an attack coming from behind, a long-range magical shot. She immediately turns, recognizes the threat, and with a single movement, destroys the building where the attack came from. Coldly, she comments that there really was a shooter and admits that the enemies were better prepared than she had imagined. Rose praises Hermes for noticing the magic from so far away, saying that he's amazing and that she's never seen anyone more talented than herself. Hermes, surprised, can hardly respond. Rose then introduces herself and says that he caught her attention. His name is revealed: Hermes von Frenbreed, a boy who had hit rock bottom at the age of 7, but who, in that moment, found a chance to change his life. Rose introduces herself as the witch and shows interest in Hermes, recognizing his potential. This encounter marks the beginning of a turn in the boy's life. Hermes thanks her for saving him. Rose, relaxed, says she only hit those guys because she was angry. Then, she notices something strange. Despite seeming weak, Hermes managed to detect a long-range attack, which indicates a hidden talent. Hermes begins to cry, remembering everything he heard from his father. He tries to explain that he wanted to be a mage like Rose, but breaks down, saying he has no power. Rose is startled, thinking he's hurt, but realizes it's something deeper. Hermes vents, saying it's useless to try, that no matter how hard he tries, he'll never be recognized. Rose, sensing his pain, calmly approaches and says she can hear his story. He tells her that he was abandoned by his family and that his only friend was taken away. Rose listens in silence and understands all the loneliness he's faced. Rose hugs Hermes tightly, saying that she knows how much it hurts. She criticizes the arrogant nobles who think they're superior, even though they depend on others' power. With a serious look, she affirms that nothing changes in this world. But then she reassures Hermes, saying that it doesn't matter if he doesn't have lineage magic. He shouldn't believe what others say. Hermes confirms that he doesn't have lineage magic, which surprises Rose. Then she becomes excited and praises his skills in magic manipulation and detection, calling him incredible. She says he's like a raw diamond and promises not to let him waste his talent. Rose gets excited about Hermes, finding him adorable, and even says she wants to take him home. Hermes feels confused and embarrassed by the compliments. Realizing she's gone too far, Rose tries to compose herself, and then, more calmly, addresses him more seriously, calling his name. Rose asks Hermes if he really likes magic. He answers affirmatively, firmly, but soon admits that since he doesn't have hereditary magic, he cannot become the type of mage he always dreamed of. Even so, he says with a sincere smile that he loves magic. Rose holds Hermes firmly and says it's time to correct that misunderstanding. She acknowledges that lineage magic is powerful and that it cannot be obtained through effort, but makes it clear that it's not all that matters. While flying through the skies, Rose says that lineage magic is just that, a given talent, without any guarantee of real strength. She criticizes those who become complacent with this gift, asserting that many settle for just having it without truly working hard. Hermes listens, surprised. Rose explains that magic isn't a divine miracle, but something created by human logic. Although lineage magic is powerful, she affirms that anyone who dedicates themselves can create their own magic. Hermes feels his world turn upside down with this revelation. As they fly beneath the moonlight, Rose reveals that being born with lineage magic, limited to a single type, can be almost like a curse. Rose explains that Hermes, for not having lineage magic, wasn't actually cursed. He is free to create any kind of magic, blessed with unlimited possibilities. Rose says that Hermes is a mage with the greatest freedom in the world, with the potential to create more incredible magics than even hers. She affirms that she has been looking for someone like him. Hermes, moved, begins to believe in himself. With the full moon in the background, Rose extends her hand to Hermes and firmly asks if he wants to become her disciple. This decision marks a new beginning for the boy. Hermes admits that, thinking about it logically, Rose's proposal seemed very suspicious. But hearing how much she spoke about magic with passion, he begins to believe that she loves magic as much as he does. Hermes is moved by Rose's words. For him, nothing was more convincing than feeling that she truly believed in his potential. He accepts the invitation and says he's excited to work with her. 5 years pass since the meeting between Hermes and Rose. Now older, he is seen running through the city streets with determination. Since that day, the girl has dedicated herself intensely to her studies and duties as a noble. Still, she carried guilt in her heart and tried to make up for it with effort and discipline, never forgetting what had happened. The ruler refuses to listen to any argument and shows arrogance, saying that everything in the country is decided based on hereditary magic. As he possesses the strongest power, he declares himself to be the law. When confronted by someone concerned with the future of the nation, he ignores them, tells them to blame their weak magic, and ends the conversation with contempt. Katia is found by a group of soldiers led by a man named Chris. He formally addresses her as Lady Katia von Traakia and orders her to stop resisting. Katia appears surprised to see him, but maintains a firm expression. Chris accuses Katia of conspiring against the state, but she responds firmly, saying there is no evidence against her and that he is abusing his authority by trying to imprison the daughter of a duke without a formal accusation. She demands explanations and makes it clear she won't accept this passively. Chris admits that he has no formal accusation against Katia, but reveals that he is acting under orders from the second prince, Astor. He says that whatever the prince decides is considered just, including determining her guilt. However, Katia realizes that he is bluffing. Katia knows that being imprisoned now would be the same as admitting guilt. Even though she thinks Chris is bluffing, she understands that in the world of nobility, even a bluff can become truth if spread as a rumor. These 5 years have taught her that appearance matters more than truth. Katia decides that she cannot give in and prepares her magic to face Chris. He mocks her resistance, saying it's typical of criminals to try to escape, and threatens to use her father's power to force her imprisonment. But she remains firm, ordering him to retreat. Katia explodes in fury, scolding Chris for his rudeness and his father's arrogance. Determined, she declares that even amid destruction, she still prays for peace. As she channels her magic, she affirms she will save a world she can't even see, though dawn has yet to arrive. Katia activates her powerful lineage magic, Soteria Trivia, surrounded by a whirlwind of intense magical energy. The enemy watches in shock as he realizes she also possesses lineage magic, something he clearly did not expect. The enemy counterattacks with his own lineage magic, Misteltina, releasing a devastating wave of energy that explodes with force in the field, causing massive destruction around. The enemy's attack is more intense than Rose expected. She tries to counterattack but realizes that her magic is not flowing properly. Even though she is not in top form, she forces herself to continue, determined to face this threat despite the risk it presents. The enemy mocks Rose's attack, suffering almost no damage, and prepares his final magic. He claims he has permission from the king to cause destruction and activates his spell arrogantly, saying it's time for her to sleep. Rose is on the ground, weakened but still conscious. While Rose lies on the ground, weakened, she remembers when Hermes, still a child, sincerely praised her magic, something no one else ever did. His words comforted her many times. Still, she laments not being able to protect him in the past. The memories of their childhood together, surrounded by discrimination, ignites something inside her. Rose thinks it's foolish to still be emotional about the past, since nothing can be changed. Still, in the face of defeat, she only wishes for one thing: for Hermes, the boy who once held her hand with hope, to be able to save her. Hermes appears at the last moment and protects Rose with a powerful magical barrier, repelling the attack that was about to hit her. He appears determined, as if he had been waiting for this moment to repay everything she did for him in the past. Hermes appears next to Rose and realizes the tense situation. With a calm smile, he comments that he doesn't fully understand what's happening, but notices that she is in trouble. Rose is surprised to hear him and, turning around, immediately recognizes him. Hermes, now more confident and mature, respectfully calls her Kadi-sama, marking his return after years of absence. Katia recognizes Hermes the moment she sees him, surprised and shaken. Memories of when they were children come to the surface. Moments under the tree, shared smiles, and the support he gave her in the past. Touched by the memory and his presence, she whispers his name with emotion. Hermes confidently introduces himself to Katia, saying that, as promised, he has become an incredible mage and has returned to her. His gaze is firm and calm, making it clear that he has finally fulfilled the promise made in childhood. The boy returns to the royal capital, the same place he was expelled from in the past. Upon arrival, he encounters key figures from his past, including a woman named Katya and his brother. He faces them calmly and says that it's been a long time since they last met. The scene flashes back to the past, when the girl met her master. Meanwhile, intense and hostile memories echo in her mind. Orders to kill and disdain surrounded her. This meeting changed everything in her life. The boy suddenly wakes up, still confused, and opens the curtains in fear. Looking around the unfamiliar room, he tries to understand where he is. Surprised by the elegant surroundings, he sits on the bed, not recognizing the place. Hermes is completely stunned when he sees the woman lying beside him, smiling peacefully as she greets him, "Good morning." The memory of what happened the previous night suddenly hits him, leaving him utterly embarrassed and confused by the situation. Hermes tries to understand why he woke up in the same bed as the woman. She explains that he was exhausted and fell asleep on the way, so she took him to her home. Not wanting to wake him forcibly, she decided to let him rest by her side. He remembers that he is now her apprentice. Embarrassed, Hermes thanks her and apologizes upon learning that she changed his clothes and cleaned his body. The woman, smiling, reassures him, saying that, in fact, she should be the one to thank him. She admits she misses the warmth of human contact and was happy to have him sleep by her side, enjoying the feeling of closeness. The woman suggests that Hermes rest more, or if he prefers, continue sleeping with her. He declines, still shy, and she then proposes to show him the house before breakfast. Extending her hand to him, Hermes hesitates for a moment but accepts. Together, they leave the room, marking the beginning of their new cohabitation. As she shows him around the house, the woman explains that Hermes can move freely, except in the laboratory. She warns him not to act recklessly until he gets accustomed to the place. Hermes observes everything in silence, feeling like he's in a dream. The environment is calm, welcoming, and completely different from the harsh reality he once knew. Hermes wonders if he deserves all of this, as the woman announces that since he will be living there, he needs a room of his own. Even though he is surprised and hesitant, she insists happily, saying that she lives alone and has plenty of space. With that, she hands him a room, telling him to use it freely. Hermes is surprised to see that the room he received is completely messy, resembling an old storage space. The woman is also confused, saying that she hasn't organized the place in about 10 years. Even so, Hermes humbly accepts, stating that he is already grateful to have a space, while she, embarrassed, changes the subject by suggesting breakfast. Hermes comes across some burnt food and questions what's going on. The woman, frustrated, admits that she hasn't cooked in 10 years and usually eats ready-made food. Even so, Hermes tries to be polite and says it's fine, as any hot meal is better than what he used to eat. Internally, he thinks that she really isn't good at domestic tasks, despite her efforts. Even in front of the strange food, Hermes tries to appear grateful and, shortly after, makes a sincere request. He wants to learn magic. The woman is surprised and excited, immediately agreeing with a smile. She then takes him to a room filled with books, where his learning will begin. Hermes is impressed with the room full of magic books, but the woman apologizes, thinking she hasn't earned his trust yet. She explains that she tried to take care of him and cook for him to change that impression, but she feels that she has failed in everything. Hermes, surprised, realizes that she was truly trying for him. Hermes explains that he became suspicious of being taken by a stranger to an unknown place, which was natural. The woman understands and even feels relieved that he is cautious. Then, with sincerity, she takes his hands and says that he is like a miracle to her, something too precious not to be valued. The woman firmly states that she will never betray Hermes, as long as he is sincere about his desire to learn magic. Even if he fails, she promises not to give up on him. Touched by her words, Hermes admits that he was afraid, but hearing that she will guide him as long as he wants to go forward, he starts to open up. Hermes remembers the painful past when his magic was discovered and his life turned into a nightmare. He was called an abomination and rejected. That trauma made him fear being abandoned again. With contained tears, he apologizes for having doubted her. He thanks her sincerely, saying that without her, he would have already died. But now, he has regained hope in magic. Hermes smiles sincerely and asks her to take care of him from now on, calling her master with pride. Touched by his words, she gets emotional and hugs him tightly, saying that he is the best disciple she could ever have. The joy between them marks the official beginning of the master-apprentice bond. While Hermes studies, his master reveals that all the magic training has one final objective: to make him master the most powerful magic she has ever created. According to her, this technique is her greatest masterpiece, and Hermes is the only one capable of mastering it completely, even if it takes a long time to achieve. Before a large magical circle, the master declares that the days ahead will be intense. With that, the training period between Hermes and his master begins, and soon time passes quickly, marking the start of a new phase in their lives. Hermes says goodbye to his master, stating firmly that he will return to the royal capital. He wants to honor everything he has learned, recover what he lost in the past, and move forward without regrets. His master watches him silently, touched by his determination. Hermes says he needs to explore different types of magic in the capital to discover his own. With a determined smile, he reveals his true goal. When she realizes that Hermes is indeed leaving, his master becomes desperate and starts crying, saying she can't bear the idea of being apart. She clings to him, admitting that she doesn't know how to cook, clean, or do anything on her own, and that she can no longer live without his presence. Hermes watches all this with a slight smile, already imagining the chaos she will face without him. Hermes, now more mature, asks his master to stop with the hugs, saying that he's 15 now and it's time to move on. She accepts sadly, acknowledging that it's the moment for her disciple to depart. Even so, with affection, she says that everything she taught him was just the seed, and now it's up to him to choose which magic he will make bloom in the world. The master speaks seriously about the royal capital, saying that it's a cruel place, full of lazy and ill-intentioned people, where many accept everything without thinking for themselves. She warns that Hermes will see things he won't want to see. Even so, when asking if he still wishes to go, she already knows the answer. Hermes, firm, is determined to follow his path. Hermes firmly states that he is going to leave. He says he has no complaints about living with his master, but now he has something important to do in the capital. He wants to reach higher places, to be at her level, and he can't stay there forever. Even if it were a lie, he wanted her to trust his decision without looking away. Hermes reinforces his decision to leave, saying he can achieve great results. Jokingly, he says that he will only come back if he's hungry, lonely, or near death. His master, now with a confident smile, encourages him enthusiastically. She tells him to go to the capital, show his strength, and prove to everyone who despised him that he has become someone powerful. With a determined smile, Hermes sets off toward his new destination. Behind him, his master waves excitedly in the open field, shouting with her heart full of pride and affection, "I love you, my disciple." While watching the sky, the master firmly and emotionally declares that Hermes must recover all his desires. Hermes returns to the capital and meets an important person from his past. Now stronger and more confident, he feels that he can finally repay the favor he received back then. The moment marks a new reunion and the beginning of something long overdue. With a firm and determined look, Hermes declares that this time it will be him who protects that person. Now stronger, he promises to use his own magic to save her, marking the beginning of his true mission. Hermes reunites with Katya after a long time. She recognizes him with surprise, while he approaches calmly, saying he decided to intervene because he saw she was in trouble. Even without understanding the full situation, he makes it clear that he couldn't ignore her. Hermes identifies himself in front of a group led by his brother, who looks at him with disdain. Surprised to see him alive, his brother recalls that Hermes was expelled from the family 5 years ago. Without hiding his discomfort, he calls him rejected and orders him to hand over the girl by his side, treating the situation with arrogance and superiority. Hermes' brother confronts him angrily, saying that he has no right to interfere because he is just a commoner without magical lineage. Hermes, calm, asks the reason for the accusation against the girl, who quickly defends herself, stating that she didn't tarnish the Duke's honor. Even so, the brother insists that Hermes shouldn't get involved, reminding him that he is no longer part of the nobility. Hermes reminds Katya of the time she comforted him when he was imprisoned, saying that his spirit would have broken without her presence. Now he wants to repay that kindness. With a sharp look, he states that there are many ways to help her, including eliminating the noble who is causing trouble, leaving his brother visibly irritated. Katya is moved by Hermes' words, saying that he's being unfair by showing up at that moment and saying things that make her want to depend on him. Hermes smiles, while the brother, filled with rage, activates a powerful magic and accuses him of arrogance, furious that Hermes suggested getting rid of him. Hermes' brother activates a powerful magical technique, formed by sacred symbols and ancient titles. Hermes recognizes the spell immediately. It's one he has seen many times in the past. With a confident smile, he says that he's happy this is the first spell he's witnessing since returning to the capital. Hermes decides to show his own magic. While starting the invocation, complex symbols and magical energy envelop him. He recites a spell with powerful words about truth, creation, and miracles, surprising everyone around him. Katya watches in awe, realizing that Hermes is using something completely out of the ordinary. Hermes firmly declares that his magic does not come from noble lineage or divine blessings. He reveals that his power is the direct result of his master's teachings and the personal effort he devoted to his own growth. It is the living proof of how much he has evolved through his own merit. Hermes reveals his creation magic, Stele of the Origin. A powerful magical structure rises before him, radiant and complex, symbolizing the peak of what he has built through his own effort. It is the materialization of what he has achieved without relying on inheritance or divine blessings. Consumed by rage and denial, Hermes' brother screams that it's impossible he acquired superior magic, calling his creation third-rate magic. Hermes, firm, confronts him impatiently. The noble tries to justify himself, saying his only mission was to capture Katya, but he is clearly shaken to see that the brother he once despised has now exceeded all expectations. During the confrontation, the enemy shouts that no one will care about a commoner caught in the middle of the mess. Hermes, unshaken, continues activating his spell firmly. Katya watches in silence, recognizing his power. She reveals that Stele of the Origin is a magic created to analyze and reconstruct any other type of magic, the foundation of magical creation. Katya explains that all magic follows fixed laws, and that it is only possible to recreate them based on their original structure. However, she is limited by her hereditary magic, which prevents her from surpassing that level. Hermes, on the other hand, carries no such restriction. Since he hasn't inherited any magical lineage, he has the theoretical potential to recreate any kind of spell, something impossible for any other common mage. While his opponent faces the impossible, Hermes remains calm, reflecting on the complexity of what he has just achieved. Lineage magic, something that should not have been possible to copy, was recreated before everyone. This was only possible thanks to the knowledge he had accumulated and the rigorous training he had endured since childhood. The feat was not just theory. He applied magical recreation with perfection in a real battle. Overcome with frustration, Hermes' brother screams in desperation, unable to accept that he has been surpassed. To him, Hermes was someone who should have been forgotten, erased from history. But Hermes, firm and silent, is already preparing his magic with precision, determined to respond not with words, but with power. Hermes releases his magic with precision, and the energy hits Chris head-on. The impact throws him violently, leaving the surrounding knights in shock, shouting his name, unable to prevent his fall. After Chris's fall, his allies panic and rush to help him. Hermes and Katya seize the moment of confusion and prepare to flee. Enraged and humiliated, Chris orders the soldiers to kill Hermes, shouting uncontrollably as an imminent chase begins through the city. Hermes and Katya manage to escape and reunite safely in a distant alley. As he recovers from the run, he is surprised by her mature appearance after 5 years. Katya, emotional and angry, bursts into questions and accusations, revealing how much she has searched for him all this time. Katya collapses in front of Hermes, asking why he never trusted her all this time. She reveals the pain she felt, the fear of losing him, and how much she regrets not being able to help. Hermes listens silently, feeling the weight of her words, and with a sincere look, simply apologizes. Emotional, Katya begins to cry in his arms. Katya, with tear-filled eyes, thanks Hermes for surviving. She forgives him and smiles with relief upon seeing him in front of her. Hermes, with a loving gesture, touches his forehead to hers and apologizes for not being able to do anything in the past. In silence, they share the weight of the memories and the relief of their reunion. Katya begins asking several questions about Hermes' life over the past 5 years, wanting to know where he lives, how he lives, and what he plans to do next. Hermes tries to answer but doesn't have clear answers, which surprises her. With a shy smile, he admits that he has some ideas but hasn't decided anything yet. Katya, excited, invites Hermes to live in her house and says she will hire him. Hermes is completely surprised by the sudden proposal, not knowing how to react immediately. A subordinate kneels before the royalty, begging for forgiveness after failing to capture Katya. The prince, irritated, reprimands him coldly, reminding him that he had been given enough troops and still lost to an unknown mage. The prince, ashamed of his defeat, decides to lie in the report to avoid admitting he lost to an exiled person. Meanwhile, he declares that Katya represents a growing threat to the country and orders that the mage who helped her be investigated and that she no longer be allowed to roam free. The prince watches coldly the humiliated subordinate, showing disdain. To him, those who don't know their place must be subjugated, as has happened with so many others before. Without showing mercy, he discards him as just another nuisance. After leaving his master's house, the boy returns to the capital and finds Katya, his childhood friend, being unjustly accused. He managed to use his lineage magic through the Esteli of the origin and saved her. Even surprised by her proposal, he decided to accompany her to the Tarkak's family residence. The protagonist arrives at the mansion with Katya, impressed by the size of the place, even though he had been there before. One of the servants runs excitedly upon seeing her, relieved by her return, and worried that she took so long to come back. Layla worries when she sees Katya hurt and with dirty clothes, but Katya reassures her. Then, Layla recognizes Hermes as the boy who used to play with Katya in childhood and comments on his fame of being expelled for having no talent. Despite that, she shows relief at seeing him safe and well. Katya warmly welcomes Hermes to the Trachea family residence and assures him that her servants won't treat him with disdain like those from the Fenriel house. Hermes smiles in relief, and soon they are taken to Lord Jurgen, where Katya formally introduces him. Lord Jurgen thanks Hermes for protecting Katya and expresses surprise upon seeing him grown. Upon learning that Katya wants to hire him as a guard, he asks Hermes to show his magic again, since his daughter was impressed with his skills in the past. Hermes accepts the request, preparing to demonstrate. Hermes presents his magic, surprising Lord Jurgen, who admits to never having seen anything like it. When asked about the origin of the technique, Hermes avoids revealing the truth, saying he was taught by a certain person. Noticing the possible exposure, Hermes' master, who watches discreetly, asks him not to speak any further about her. Hermes then refuses to give more details, keeping his mentor's identity a secret. Even when directly pressured by Duke Trachea as head of the noble house, Hermes refuses to reveal any information about his master. He makes it clear that his decision is not out of fear or due to the imposition of someone superior, but out of pure loyalty and respect. Hermes states that he cannot betray the teachings and trust of the one who trained him, showing firmness in his choice to protect his mentor's identity. The Duke tries to understand how Hermes' magic works, questioning whether he can copy lineage magics. Hermes explains that, technically, it's not a copy but a complete recreation based on observation and theory. When pressed about possible limitations, such as the number of uses or replacement of spells, Hermes says there are none. He can use the recreated magic as many times as he wants and still maintain all previous ones, without restrictions. The Duke is shocked by the unlimited potential of Hermes' magic, which can recreate any magic without restrictions and use it indefinitely. He recognizes that this could shake the entire structure of noble society. He then questions Hermes about his goals and why, now so powerful, he has returned to the royal capital. He also raises suspicions about the reasons that led Hermes to save Katya, saying that, without understanding this, he cannot fully accept him. Faced with the Duke's suspicions, who doubts Hermes' intentions and speculates that he might be trying to get close to the nobility again with ulterior motives, Hermes decides to be direct. He acknowledges that it's natural to generate distrust, but asserts without hesitation that his true goal is not status or influence. He is seeking a magic he can call his own. Hermes faces the Duke firmly and reveals his true ambition. He is not seeking prestige or reconciliation with the nobility. His only desire is to create his own magic, something that is entirely his, born from effort and learning and not inherited from anyone. Hermes reveals that his true dream has always been to deeply understand the creation of magic, to one day develop one that would be only his. Inspired by his master, he wants to shape something even more beautiful than hereditary magic, a proof of his own existence and effort. Hermes reveals that he helped Katya because even when at a disadvantage, she thought of others before herself. Seeing that she continued to be the same kind girl who supported him in the past, he felt he needed to repay that kindness. The Duke comments that Hermes' reason was naive, judging by a momentary impression, but admits that, as a father, he is happy to see someone trust so much in his daughter. Finally, he says that he feels relieved knowing that it is Hermes who will be protecting Katya. Katya becomes completely embarrassed when she hears her father's comment and quickly rushes to make it clear that Hermes is not thinking of her that way. However, inside, she celebrates the fact that now Hermes will always be by her side as a guard, even though she tries to hide her feelings. Hermes notices that everything turned out better than expected and thanks Katya for the warm reception. Even though he was prepared to sleep outside, he received a comfortable room. As he reflects, he realizes that Lord Jurgen must protest against his brother's involvement in the incident, as the order came from Prince Aster. For now, the enemies will be contained. Hermes realizes he needs to take his role as Katya's guard seriously since he doesn't know what kind of danger may arise. Katya appears on the balcony and calls him to talk, saying that a lot has happened, and they didn't have time to speak properly. Hermes praises Katya by saying he was thinking about how she became so beautiful. She is surprised and embarrassed, complaining that he is more direct than he used to be. Hermes is confused by the reaction, while Katya remembers when he used to praise her in the past, but in a more timid way. Hermes tries to maintain distance, addressing Katya formally because of their social positions now, but she insists that he call her as he used to. She argues that, since he is her attendant, he should obey his employer. Hermes gives in, still a bit confused, and calls her Kati, making Katya embarrassed but satisfied. As they converse under the night, Katya asks about Hermes' master. He says he cannot talk much because of his master's social position, but that he was considered a failure. Despite this, Hermes confidently states that his master is the most amazing person in the world when it comes to magic and will forever be his number one in that aspect. Hermes asks how Katya's last 5 years have been. She responds that a lot has happened, mainly involving her engagement to Prince Aster. Hermes is surprised to confirm that she really is engaged to the prince. And Katya mentions that if she had a fiancé, not even he as a childhood friend and servant, could be there with her at that hour of the night. Katya reveals that her engagement to Prince Aster was broken off the previous month. She says that now she is just the daughter of a discarded noble, showing a serene smile despite the situation. Hermes puts on formal clothes and is complimented by Layla, who says he looks great and that Katya will surely like it. As he descends the stairs, Hermes notices that there are few servants in the residence, especially near Katya. Layla then asks to speak with him privately on his first day as a guard. Hermes asks if Katya has trustworthy friends in the capital, but Layla reveals that there is no one like that. Katya can't open up to anyone because, as the daughter of a duke, many approach her only out of interest. Layla then makes a direct request that Hermes become Katya's emotional support, someone who understands her feelings and never abandons her. Hermes thinks about the 5 years he spent away from the capital and reflects that, during that time, Katya went through tough experiences as the daughter of a duke, including the breakup of her engagement. He concludes that now, more than ever, supporting Katya is something he must do. As he prepares to leave, he is surprised by her calling him excitedly. Hermes appears in formal attire and apologizes for the delay. When Katya sees him, she is so embarrassed and surprised by his appearance that she covers her face and asks him not to come closer for a while. The other girls try to cheer her up, saying she is just impressed, while Hermes, confused, wonders if he really looked that good in the clothes. Hermes, now dressed in his new uniform, formally introduces himself to Katya and sincerely expresses that it will be a pleasure to take care of her. As a childhood friend and attendant, he reaffirms his commitment to be by her side and offer his support from now on. Katya remembers her mother leaving when she was still little. Desperate, she runs after her, pleading for her not to leave. In her memory, her mother smiles warmly, and before leaving, asks Katya to never forget her. Before leaving, Katya's mother leaves impactful words. She says that magic should not be used to dominate, but to protect the weaker. To be happy, one must protect the happiness of others. Katya, emotional, runs after her while hearing her last request, to become a noble worthy of respect. Katya watches in despair as a devastating attack hits the city while shouting for her mother. The flames and destruction around her paralyze her and fear takes over. Crying, she stretches her hand out and begs for it not to happen, overwhelmed by helplessness and pain in the face of the tragedy. Katya wakes up silently and thoughtfully, still marked by the memories of the past. She looks at a family portrait and greets her mother with a good morning, expressing longing and affection. A few days later, Hermes officially becomes her guard, marking the beginning of a new phase by her side. During a meeting, a soldier informs about a dungeon discovered in the Hawaii Mountains, near the territory of another count. Monsters attacked a village, but there were no deaths. In the face of the threat, the Duke plans to evacuate the civilians and handle the danger, but his soldiers are busy. Determined, Katya offers to go personally to handle the situation. Katya firmly defends her decision to go to the site of the attack. She says that, as a noble with lineage magic, she has the duty to protect the people. Even with the Duke's initial hesitation, he recognizes her commitment and approves her decision, reminding her that she has always fought for others and promised her mother to become a noble worthy of respect. Hermes accepts the mission to protect Katya once more. The Duke, trusting him, orders that he bring soldiers and return immediately if the situation becomes dangerous. Meanwhile, Hermes remembers that Katya's mother, a kind and courageous woman, died protecting the city from a horde of monsters when they were both 6 years old. Katya still holds this memory close with affection. During the walk with the soldiers, Katya asks Hermes if he has ever fought against monsters. He answers that he has, during his training period. Katya explains the severity of the situation. Monsters are a growing threat, multiplying quickly, and if left unchecked, they become dangerous enough to threaten humanity. She asserts that they are currently the greatest threat to the people of the nation. Katya explains that certain strange structures with complex interiors serve as monster dens. These are called dungeons and end up becoming bases for the monsters. When hordes grow in these places, they can turn into real disasters for the kingdom. One of the knights protests furiously against Katya for hiring Hermes, saying that he is just a boy and should not be responsible for such a dangerous mission. He emphasizes the risks of exploring a dungeon and the burden it entails. Katya, firm, replies that she chose Hermes for his skills, making it clear that her decision was based on merit, not personal ties. Katya and Hermes are approached by an arrogant man named Count Eldridge, who provokes her by calling her a flawed young lady. Tension rises with the arrival of the Count, clearly hostile, who shows disdain and questions her presence at the location. Hermes recognizes the name, recalling that his territory borders Katya's. Count Eldridge tries to assert his authority, saying that he will conquer the dungeon immediately and orders Katya to leave. He provokes her again, saying she should be moved by him taking on her burden. Katya reminds him that the area is under her duchy's jurisdiction, and Hermes observes the situation in silence, clearly irritated by the Count's arrogance. Count Eldridge loses control and begins attacking Katya with insults. He accuses her of trying to steal the credit for the dungeon and calls her useless, saying she was rejected by the prince and can't even use magic. Hermes looks visibly uncomfortable, while Katya listens to everything with a serious but shaken expression. When Eldridge escalates and tries to present himself as the chosen one by God, a monster appears and attacks him by surprise. Hermes, without hesitation, defeats the creature quickly in front of everyone. With a calm expression, he apologizes ironically, saying that he only acted because he thought Eldridge was in danger. Hermes mocks Eldridge with a calm and polite tone, asking what the consequence would be if they ignored such a surprise attack. He exposes Eldridge's arrogance and incompetence in front of everyone, highlighting that he didn't even notice the monster's approach. This deeply angers the Count, who explodes in fury for having been humiliated by someone he considered a mere servant. Hermes responds with irony and lightness, saying that he just wanted to help, even though he is just a boy without training. He provokes Eldridge by suggesting that the Count should be grateful and crying with emotion. Irritated and humiliated, Eldridge threatens to take revenge, shouting at his soldiers and saying he will never forget Hermes' face. Meanwhile, the others watch the scene, surprised by the way Hermes handled the situation. Hermes apologizes for getting carried away, but the guard, visibly moved, admits that he was wrong about him. He regrets judging him only by appearance and praises his courage for facing even a count to defend his master. Katya watches the reconciliation with relief, and the other soldiers cheer up to continue with the mission, now more united. Hermes quickly eliminates several monsters with his precise magic, showing full control of the situation. Katya, watching his skill, smiles confidently and praises him for his efficiency, showing that now she fully trusts him as her guardian. Hermes explains that he is using a general magic enhanced with effects from Istele of the Origin, allowing him to cast spells without incantations. Though it doesn't have the raw power of lineage magic, the convenience and efficiency impress everyone. The soldiers praise the progress inside the dungeon, attributing the success to Hermes' support. Katya and the guards move forward confidently, until something sudden catches their attention. The group encounters an immense and threatening creature, radiating a strong magical presence. Hermes realizes that this intense energy can only mean one thing. It is the dungeon's boss. The mood changes immediately as everyone prepares for the decisive confrontation. Hermes recognizes the monster as a dragon turtle, also called the Black Tortoise, revealing that, despite its appearance, it is a full dragon. He comments that he has faced creatures of this type before during his training. Concerned about Count Eldridge's situation, Hermes suggests temporarily retreating to gather more forces and plan the next steps with the support of the Justice Minister. The roar of the dragon turtle echoes powerfully, interrupting any plans to retreat. Hermes and Katya are caught off guard by the creature's sudden hostility, becoming alert to the imminent danger. The dragon turtle charges with force against the ground, causing the structure to shake violently. Hermes protects Katya as the path begins to collapse beneath their feet. The soldiers try to move away, but the situation becomes critical as mass destruction spreads rapidly. The group survives thanks to a protective barrier conjured in time. Hermes confirms that Katya is fine, but notes with seriousness that the escape route has been destroyed. Now isolated, they will have to face the dungeon's boss without the possibility of retreat. The tortoise dragon roars with fury and violently charges against the group's barrier, sending debris flying in all directions. Hermes positions himself in front of Katya and the soldiers, ready to face the creature head-on. The chapter ends with maximum tension, marking the beginning of a decisive battle. The tortoise dragon advances with surprising speed for its size, launching an enormous paw at the knights. One of the soldiers is thrown, and the captain only manages to block the blow in time. Even on guard, he feels the creature's heavy impact and realizes that this fight will be tougher than he expected. Hermes channels his magic with precision and releases multiple direct shots at the tortoise dragon. The explosions accumulate quickly on the creature's body, creating visible cracks in its shell. Seeing that the normal attacks are not having an effect, Hermes asks Katya to use her lineage magic. Without hesitation, she prepares to cast a powerful spell. As the dragon retreats for a moment, Katya raises her hand and releases Sotria Trivia, an ancient magic. The energy begins to concentrate around her, demonstrating that they are finally going to strike with full force. The tortoise dragon advances with surprising speed, dodging Katya's attack. She is impressed by the creature's agility. Before she can act again, Hermes positions himself beside her, extending his hand firmly and telling her that he will help, ready to act together. Hermes casts his magic with precision and activates the spell, Blood Chain, binding the tortoise dragon in magical chains before it could strike them. The creature is immobilized in the air, unable to advance. Katya watches in surprise, feeling the strength and synchronicity between them in the combat. Even though it is bound by Hermes' chains, the tortoise dragon releases a blast of raw force, breaking part of the bindings. The soldiers watch in shock, while Katya and Hermes realize that the creature still has plenty of power. Katya gets frustrated, realizing they underestimated the enemy. Hermes watches the dragon activate a powerful barrier magic, easily blocking the previous attack. The creature exhales an aura of magical power comparable to lineage magic, and Hermes recognizes that sensation. It was identical to a dangerous moment from his past. Now he realizes that the enemy is even more formidable than they imagined. Hermes remembers the battle against a fierce dragon he faced a year ago. The scene revives in his mind. The imminent danger, the devastating attacks, and the tension of fighting for his life. The magical energy of the current enemy is identical to that from that fight, awakening in him the same sense of urgency and alertness. Hermes recalls that, just like the red dragon he faced with his master, this new enemy is also immune to conventional magic. During a previous dungeon exploration, he discovered that the only way to defeat such creatures was with a different approach. Determined, he begins to devise a strategy, knowing that victory will require more than magical power. While the knights try to protect Katya, one of them shouts at her to flee with Hermes and seek reinforcements. But Katya firmly rejects the idea, refusing to abandon her comrades on the battlefield. Even in the face of danger, she insists that she cannot leave them behind, showing her determination and sense of responsibility. Katya hesitates, torn by the possibility of leaving her comrades behind. She realizes the sacrifice they are making for her, but the fear of losing them paralyzes her. Amidst the confusion and pain, she wonders what to do. In that moment, the memory of her mother appears before her, as if seeking strength in her words and example to make the right decision. Hermes holds Katya and urgently calls her. He reveals that there is only one attack capable of breaking through the dragon's barrier, but to use it, he will need time to charge and chant the spell. As the threat surrounds them, both realize that executing this technique will be a critical moment in the battle. Hermes faces the situation with seriousness and firmly asks, if they can keep the dragon still for just 5 seconds, he will be able to launch the decisive attack. This short time becomes the key point to turn the battle. Hermes begins to run, concentrating his magical energy while forming a magic circle with his hand. The dragon notices the movement and charges for an attack, but Hermes dodges with agility, maintaining focus while preparing the decisive spell. Hermes advances with surprising speed, dodging the dragon's attacks while strengthening his body with magic. The knights, impressed, comment on how he is not losing to a professional warrior, recognizing how effective his combination of agility and magic is on the battlefield. When the dragon tries to attack Hermes during his charge, one of the knights steps in the way and blocks the strike with his sword, shouting that he won't allow it. This creates a vital opening for Hermes to continue his approach without being hit. With the help of the knight who blocked the attack, the group managed to weaken the dragon, making it fall to its knees. Katya, seizing the opportunity, prepares her final move with confidence. While the creature roars in pain, Katya releases what remains of her magic to contain the dragon, but realizes that her power is almost at its limit. Even so, she remains firm and manages to suppress it for a brief moment, determined to give enough time for the final attack. Hermes praises Katya for having bought enough time. With the final magic fully charged, he activates a powerful fire spell, ready to pierce the dragon's defenses with a devastating blow. Hermes completes his magic with precision, recreating a devastating technique called alternate dragon breath. A sea of flames erupts against the enemy dragon, engulfing it completely and hitting dead on, with power comparable to the breath of a true dragon. Hermes' attack hits the dragon directly, which screams in pain as its body is consumed by the flames. The powerful fiery blast destroys its magical defense, and its body begins to be swallowed by the fire, unable to withstand the impact of the recreated magic. The group watches the fallen body of the dragon, still cautious. Hermes analyzes in silence, while one of the knights celebrates, believing they have won. Katya, surprised, recognizes that the magic Hermes used was something different, something that caught her attention in a special way. Hermes explains that he used magic copied from a dragon from another dungeon, recreated with the help of Islay of the origin. This technique allows the replication of any magic, including those used by high-level monsters, even surpassing lineage magic. Katya, surprised and touched by Hermes' ability, sincerely praises him, saying that he has become an incredible mage. When he asks if she is injured, she denies, without explaining what she's really feeling. Katya, visibly shaken, vents that she feels useless because, even with her powerful lineage magic, known as one of the strongest and capable of defeating dragons, she couldn't contribute as she expected. She compares herself to Hermes and laments being seen as a defective young lady who can't use magic. Katya continues blaming herself for not being able to use all her power when it was most needed, saying that she put everyone in danger because of her weakness. She believes Hermes must be disappointed in her. Still, Hermes gently calls her by name, holding her hand, showing that he doesn't share that disappointment and still respects her. Hermes asks Katya if she has ever been disappointed in him in the past when he was considered useless and talentless. He remembers how people treated him and how it marked him, but firmly says that he is not disappointed in her. He repeats the same answer she gave him before, showing that he trusts her. Katya is surprised and moved, remembering when she thought he would never become a great mage, and now she sees that she was wrong. Hermes states that people who try as hard as Katya cannot help but become great mages. He recognizes that something is hindering her magic, and because of this, he makes a direct request. He wants to recreate her spell, Sotria Trivia, using his own magic. He demonstrates total confidence in her potential and wishes to help her understand what is limiting her powers. The boy explains to the girl about recreating a specific spell called Soteria Trivia. He demonstrates that to do so, he needs to deeply understand the original magic, using the Stele of the Origin. Observing him, the girl thinks about this weakness in lineage magic, as it is so complex that even the person born with it may not notice some details. The boy continues explaining that mages with lineage magic can use it without needing to understand its internal structure, just like humans move their bodies without understanding the anatomical details. Because of this, they usually don't perceive hidden effects or errors in their magic. Watching the girl, he believes that the reason she can't use her magic well may be related to this, promising to personally investigate the cause of her difficulties. A man named Count Eldridge arrives at the place where the two young ones are, noticing that the dungeon's boss has already been defeated, which would make his life much easier. Without caring for the others, he starts climbing the stairs, accompanied by his soldiers. The girl is surprised and tries to stop him, but the Count ignores her protests and moves ahead. Count Eldridge finds a famous artifact in the dungeon, immediately becoming excited by his discovery. He thinks about the enormous benefits he could receive if he gifts the object to the royal family, such as treasures, lands, or even a promotion in his noble title. The girl confronts Count Eldridge, accusing him of trying to steal the credit for conquering the dungeon and defeating its boss. The Count responds angrily, claiming that originally the victory should have been his, and accuses her group of stealing his merit. Meanwhile, the two young ones watch, frustrated and suspicious of the Count's intentions. The girl insists that the dragon's carcass is enough proof to confirm who really defeated the dungeon's boss, demanding that Count Eldridge stop trying to manipulate the situation. However, the Count smiles maliciously, planning to eliminate all evidence, including the monster's carcass, as they are isolated in the mountains, with no other witnesses. Count Eldridge activates his lineage magic called Yahello. A powerful magic circle appears behind him as he summons the winds of the south, north, and divine, preparing to unleash a large-scale and devastating spell. The Count releases his lineage magic arrogantly, provoking the girl and stating that she, being defective, would never be able to break his spell. He claims that magical strength is everything in that country and despises anyone he deems weak. The girl and the boy prepare, aware of the threat they face. The Count challenges the girl, saying that if her magic really were superior, he would have to accept her arguments and retreat. Katya, despite being angry, acknowledges that his magic is indeed powerful and understands that she will need to overcome this somehow. The boy then approaches and offers her advice. suggesting a way forward in the situation. The boy explains that the activation of magic is strongly influenced by the user's emotions. He believes that Katya's difficulty may be related to confused or misdirected emotions during the use of her magic. He emphasizes that what really matters is the sincerity of what one feels, as it adds emotional strength to the spell. According to him, many people fail to understand their own feelings, which ends up directly affecting their magical performance. Katya deeply reflects on the true reason she is using magic at that moment. At first, she thinks it's to put an end to the Count's abuses or because she was provoked by him. However, she realizes these are only apparent reasons. The real reason, more intimate and sincere, is her desire to act with justice and righteousness as a noble. Katya realizes that, until now, she had been repressing her feelings in the name of duty and the image of an exemplary noble. Remembering the expectations placed on her, she understands that she was merely following what others expected. But in that moment, facing the reality before her, she finally recognizes the true feelings she carries in her heart. Overcome by her true feelings, Katya releases her magic with intensity. She expresses her outrage at seeing the Count try to take credit for something he didn't even participate in, ignoring all the effort and risk she and others faced. Her determination grows, fueled by indignation and the desire for justice, making it clear that she will no longer accept this kind of disrespect. Katya finally activates her lineage magic completely, surprising the Count with her power. Eldridge is confused as he realizes the spell is unlike anything he has ever heard of. With firmness and determination, Katya directly confronts him, saying that he should be ashamed of his actions. Katya invokes the magic Soteria Trivia, summoning armed skeletal warriors that charge with force against the Count. Eldridge, filled with fear, retreats in panic, in the face of the spell's intensity, unable to react to the true power she has awakened. The Count tries to defend himself, saying that Katya's magic is just an appearance and threatens that it could further tarnish her reputation. He tries to intimidate them, but the boy responds with irony, reminding him that the Count himself said there were no witnesses. With a provocative smile, he suggests they dispose of all evidence, returning the threat with the same words the Count had used earlier. The boy provokes the Count, insinuating that if he were defeated by Katya's magic, everyone would believe he was killed by a monster, as the remaining magical signature would point to her. Meanwhile, Eldridge panics, ordering the creature to be removed and shouting orders out of control. The boy remains calm, raising his hand and making it clear that he now has control of the situation. One of Katya's allies knocks out the Count's knights, saying that he needed to release his pent-up anger. Surprised and panicked, Eldridge falls to the ground, begging for mercy. The boy, with a calm and firm gaze, makes it clear that the decision is now in the Count's hands. He knows exactly what he must do if he wants to be spared. Defeated and without an escape, Count Eldridge gives in, acknowledging his defeat. With a defeated expression, he declares that the artifact belongs to the group, recognizing their legitimate right to the conquest of the dungeon. Katya, the boy, and the others watch the staff floating before them, now officially in their hands. With the Count fleeing humiliated, the group celebrates in safety. Katya, surprised by her own strength, asks the boy if he helped her in any way. He denies it, stating that the power came from her. She becomes emotional, realizing that this was the first time she managed to use such a strong magic on her own. The boy praises Katya, saying that it was the most beautiful execution of a spell she has ever done. Still surprised, she admits that, even though it's magic inherited from her noble family, she feels that something is still missing. He encourages her, stating that this is not the limit of her power and that she must feel that too. Katya asks if he would also be able to awaken a power like hers. With a confident smile, he says he believes so, revealing that he has a personal desire related to her magic. He expresses his wish to use that incredible magic, and Katya, moved, says that he doesn't need to hold back. It's the least she can offer in return for everything he has done for her. A few days later, in a quiet moment at the Duke's residence, Katya enjoys a cup of black tea, praising its flavor. The boy reveals that he used to prepare this tea for his former master frequently. She comments that he is very good at it, and he responds contentedly, happy to have gotten her taste right. Hermes impresses the mansion servants with his domestic skills, being praised for performing tasks as well as a professional. Katya, hearing him offer to do anything she asks respectfully, is so surprised and unresponsive that she ends up choking on her tea. Concerned, the others rush to check if she's okay. After the tea accident, one of the servants tries to ease the tension and soon comments to Katya that her feelings for Hermes are quite obvious. Katya enters denial, saying she can't admit that, justifying the social status difference between them and how he probably views the relationship. Still, she can't hide how affected she is. Katya feels confused about her own feelings, unsure of what Hermes would think of her after the recent breakup of her engagement. She fears seeming fickle. While the servants try to comfort her, Katya reflects on how Hermes has changed. He used to be cheerful and innocent, but now he seems more mature and distant, which leaves her even more uncertain about how to approach him. Katya admits, even though she feels selfish, that she would like Hermes to show more interest in her. Even though he complimented her, he did it casually, which left her frustrated. The servant quickly understands her feelings and concludes that Katya wants to see the more naive and shy side of Hermes, the boy from before, more emotional and spontaneous. Katya, embarrassed, ends up agreeing. The servant, excited, says there's a clear way to make Hermes show more feelings. Katya needs to go on a date with him. The direct suggestion completely catches Katya off guard, leaving her speechless and shocked by the idea. The chapter begins with the servant's bold proposal to arrange a date between Katya and Hermes. She suggests that they stroll through the capital like ordinary young people, enjoying the moment and showing off all Katya's charm. Excited, she already thinks about scheduling everything, while Katya, desperate, tries to contain her friend's enthusiasm and prevent everything from being decided without her permission. The servant grabs Katya's attention, noticing that she's exhausted with dark circles under her eyes from not resting since the dungeon conquest. She reminds Katya that she spent the night reading reports of monster damage. Surprised, Katya discovers that even her father, Lord Jurgen, was concerned about her well-being. In another part of the mansion, he admits that since the death of his wife, Katya has dedicated herself to fulfilling her role as a noble. Katya is surprised to learn that her father regrets her losing some of her freedom by dedicating herself so much to her responsibilities as a noble. He believes that she also deserves to act like a girl her age and have fun every once in a while. Touched by his words, Katya decides to gather her courage and invites Hermes to go out, determined to see where it leads. The next day, Katya and Hermes go out together to stroll through the royal capital. Hermes observes the city with nostalgia, remembering when he was a child. He thanks Katya for the invitation, saying that he had already thought of visiting the place, and he is visibly happy with the experience. Katya, a bit embarrassed, reacts shyly, still getting used to the moment. Before the date, the servant consoles Katya, saying she doesn't need to worry about the breakup with the prince, since it was clear there was no affection between them and that it was the prince who proposed the union. She encourages her to be honest with her feelings and wishes for Katya to enjoy the day. Touched by the words, Katya begins to accept her feelings and gains the courage to move forward. Katya remembers Hermes' words about how the sincerity of feelings strengthens magic. With a light smile and sparkling eyes, she extends her hand with determination, finally accepting her own feelings and ready to express them without fear. Katya, embarrassed but determined, holds Hermes' hand as they walk together. Surprised, he asks the reason, and she tries to cover up the gesture, saying there are many people in the capital and it would be a problem if they got lost. Even blushing, she pretends it's natural, but her gesture reveals her true feelings. Katya, still holding Hermes' hand, excitedly guides him through the capital. She shows him the main sights of the city, like the market and residential areas, explaining everything naturally. Hermes follows attentively, surprised by her enthusiasm and by the new dynamic between them. Hermes feels a strong sense of nostalgia while walking with Katya, remembering when she used to take him out for walks whenever he dedicated himself too much to studying magic. Reliving that moment makes him smile, but upon meeting familiar faces along the way, he and Katya become embarrassed by their hand-holding, trying to hide their embarrassment. As they walk, Katya and Hermes are approached by merchants who recognize her and thank her publicly. They say that before going to the capital, Katya helped them escape a big mess involving a dishonest supplier. Thanks to her intervention, the store was able to avoid bankruptcy. Hermes is surprised to hear this, realizing that Katya has a positive impact on people even without flaunting it. Katya tries to downplay her merits, saying she was just fulfilling her duty as a noble. But the merchant insists that few nobles would care about a regular store like theirs. Soon after, noticing the two of them holding hands, she asks if they're on a secret date. Katya panics and tries to cover up, saying she's just showing the city to her new assistant, while the merchant watches the scene, laughing discreetly. The merchant invites Katya and Hermes to visit her jewelry store, specialized in sales to nobles. Katya feels a bit awkward but accepts. Hermes, however, reveals that he doesn't understand much about jewelry, surprising Katya, who thought all nobles had this kind of interest. She then comments that, despite this, she's interested in fashion and likes to dress well. Katya reveals to Hermes that, as much as she likes fashion, she never felt it was worth getting dressed up for someone. She speaks sadly about her former fiancé, saying that no matter what she did, he would never truly see her. Hermes listens in silence, touched by her sincerity. Herm says he has always liked beautiful things, and that the reason he fell in love with magic was because he found it beautiful. He comments that the same applies to people, and if he had the chance to see someone already beautiful become even more charming, he would like that. When he says he would love to see Katya wearing a jewel from the store, she is completely surprised and blushing at his sincere words. Katya is completely embarrassed after Herm's comment about her wearing a jewel. The saleswoman, sensing the mood, teases them, saying that things are heating up, wishing happiness to the couple. Desperate and blushing, Katya interrupts everything, hurriedly pulling Herm out of the store, trying to explain that it is not what it seems. Later that night, she remains frustrated, shouting that she cannot believe what happened. Katya continues irritated and embarrassed, wondering how Herm can say such awkward things so calmly in public. Even remembering his words about wanting to see her even more beautiful, she hides her face in the pillow, blushing. Later, she talks to Layla and learns that there will be a celebration in her honor for presenting an artifact to the royal family. Katya asks for help to choose the dress she will wear to the party, saying she wants to look well-dressed. She surprises Layla by showing concern for her appearance, something she hadn't prioritized before. Touched, Layla agrees to help, and Katya also mentions a store where they want to choose an accessory to match. The day of the celebration arrives. Several nobles are gathered in the hall, and Hermes observes the environment. Impressed by the number of important people, he reflects on being there as Katya's companion, still wondering if he was truly the most suitable for this role, although he had been strongly suggested for it. Katya appears at the party wearing an elegant dress, leaving Hermes completely speechless with her beauty. Her presence draws attention, marking a significant moment between them. Katya shyly asks how she looks in the dress, clearly nervous. Hermes is momentarily stunned, completely impacted by her beauty, not knowing what to say. Hermes holds Katya's hand, and even though he tries to find the right words, he simply says sincerely that she looks incredibly beautiful. Katya, surprised and embarrassed, can barely react. During the party, everyone starts commenting on Katya, her beauty, impeccable manners, and even her progress with magic. Eldridge's name comes up, and it quickly spreads that she managed to drive him away with lineage magic. Hermes realizes that everyone's attention is on her. Lord Jurgen thanks Hermes for helping Katya overcome her difficulties with magic. Hermes humbly responds, saying that he just gave her the opportunity. Jurgen, satisfied, reaffirms that he made the right choice by trusting him. Hermes asks why Lord Jurgen trusted him without clear guarantees. Jurgen replies that, in addition to the possibility that Hermes may have connections to the Fenribird house, the main reason was the fact that he genuinely trusted Katya, and Hermes also demonstrated the same trust in her. Jurgen reveals that he has an idea of who Hermes' master is. He says that only one person could have granted such extraordinary magic, her. Jurgen mentions that his late wife had a connection with this mysterious woman. However, he reassures Hermes, saying that no one besides him seems to have made the connection between the origin of the magic and this woman. Hermes is surprised to realize that Katya's mother may be connected to the mystery of his magic. Jurgen advises him to go to Katya, and Hermes walks away thoughtfully, recognizing that Jurgen is not an ordinary person for deducing so much from just his words. As he walks, a butler announces him in front of Katya. Hermes finds Katya being approached by a man named Karl von Hartnett, a count from the West. He has come with a marriage proposal, claiming to have heard that Katya overcame her magical limitations. Katya tries to politely refuse, but the count insists that she meet his son at least once. Hermes watches the situation cautiously. Katya firmly informs him that her engagement with the second prince was broken the previous month and asks Count Hartnett to reconsider his proposal. However, the Count ignores her request, praises Katya's intelligence and talent, and criticizes the prince for giving up someone so valuable. Hermes observes in silence as the Count's insistence begins to annoy him. The second prince unexpectedly appears, interrupting the conversation with a threatening look and an intimidating aura. He demands to know what was said about him, making it clear that his intention is to confront directly anyone who mentioned him. Hermes immediately recognizes the imposing man. It is the second prince of the kingdom, Katya's former fiancé, and, more importantly, the one directly responsible for his own expulsion. The shock is visible on his face as he remembers who gave the order for the banishment. Hermes and the second prince stare at each other in front of the hall's staircase, where the atmosphere is heavy with tension. Hermes recognizes the prince as the one directly responsible for his expulsion. Amid the charged atmosphere, a new figure appears, Sarah beside the prince. Katya, surprised, immediately recognizes her. The second prince, Astor, unexpectedly appears in the hall, drawing the attention of everyone. Hermes watches in surprise as the guests question the prince's presence. The tension rises with the arrival of this figure, who no one expected to see at the event. Hermes recognizes Astor as Katya's ex-fiancé and the one responsible for her banishment years ago. He questions the reason for his presence at a party in honor of Katya's achievements. Meanwhile, Katya stares at Sarah firmly, and Astor is interrupted before he can say anything, surprised by her initiative. The second prince, Astor, arrogantly declares that he considers Katya useless. He confronts Count Hartnett for proposing marriage to her, insinuating that it would be the same as disrespecting his authority. Hartnett, visibly frightened, tries to justify himself by saying he just heard rumors. Astor dismisses the excuse and dismisses everyone's presence at the party, even though it's in honor of his ex-fiancée. Prince Astor accuses Karl von Hartnett of treason, claiming that his words and actions indicate intentions to rebel. Astor publicly declares him a criminal, stating that his presence at the party was meant to correct this false impression. Karl panics, begs for forgiveness, and tries to defend himself by saying it's all a misunderstanding, while the guards restrain him in front of everyone. Prince Astor mocks Katya's achievements, insinuating that she was deluded by her recent fame and victories, including overcoming her magical flaw and recovering a rare artifact. He diminishes her accomplishments, calling them lies, and questions whether she misses the position of being his fiancée. Katya tries to respond firmly, denying any falsehoods, but Astor interrupts her authoritatively. Astor explodes in anger, accusing Katya of manipulating conversations to her advantage. Without allowing for further discussion, he publicly rejects her, stating that he will never marry her again. Katya firmly returns the rejection with clarity. Astor then insinuates that he has already found someone else, ending the situation with disdain and indifference. Astor reveals his new fiancée to everyone, Sarah von Hartmann, daughter of a noble. The introduction is cold and strategic, with Sarah maintaining a serious expression as she takes the place once held by Katya. Astor excessively praises Sarah, exalted her beauty, shyness, and magical talent as superior to Katya's, ignoring the fact that she comes from a family of lower status. Katya, surprised, confirms that she knew Sarah from school. The reunion between the two is tense as their shared past begins to emerge. Katya looks at Sarah as someone unprepared for the weight of being royalty's fiancée and confronts her, questioning if she has the courage to handle everything this position demands. Katya's firmness leaves Sarah speechless, and Astor intervenes angrily, trying to end the conversation. Astor, attempting to reverse the situation, accuses Katya of being jealous and cruel to Sarah in the past, claiming she used her position to intimidate her at school. The accusation surprises those present, who begin to doubt Katya after hearing the prince's words. Astor insists in front of everyone that his words are true and pressures Sarah to confirm his accusations. Meanwhile, Katya realizes that no matter how they tried to defend themselves, no one there would dare doubt a prince's word. Under the pressure, Sarah hesitates but ends up confirming the prince's words despite visible uncertainty. Astor takes advantage of the moment to publicly accuse Katya, claiming that her true face has finally been revealed. Prince Astor begins to manipulate the audience, saying that a young woman considered defective couldn't awaken magic legitimately, insinuating that Katya used tricks. The crowd, influenced, begins to doubt her achievements. Hermes watches the ease with which everyone accepts the prince's words. Suddenly, a huge monster appears on the grounds of the assembly hall, shocking the guests. One of the guards attempts to contain it, but the creature is clearly powerful and poses an immediate threat to the venue. Hermes and Katya run toward the scene of the attack after hearing the chaos. There, they encounter a knight facing an immense and threatening creature, a wyvern. The presence of the monster spreads even more panic among the attendees. With the wyvern threatening everyone, Katya orders Hermes to prepare for battle. As the soldiers retreat from the danger, Prince Astor challenges Sarah to prove her worth by showcasing her magic in front of everyone. Katya realizes that the appearance of the monster was orchestrated. The convenient presence of Prince Aster and his initiative to lead the defense don't seem like coincidence. As everything unfolds as part of a carefully crafted plan, Sarah prepares to act. Sarah activates her lineage magic in front of everyone, invoking a powerful healing spell. A soft light envelops the area, instantly healing the wounded in the hall and leaving everyone impressed by her power. Sarah continues her magical chant, revealing that she has a dual aptitude for lineage magic. As everyone watches in awe, she casts an even more powerful spell, making it clear, that her power exceeds expectations. Even the prince is surprised by the revelation. Sarah successfully finishes her magic, completely sealing the wyvern inside a powerful magical prison. The creature struggles, but it is fully contained. A mysterious man enters the scene, praising her achievement and taking responsibility for dealing with the rest. The prince begins to invoke a grand magic, surrounded by flames and sacred symbols. His spell summons an aura of celestial judgment. The prince activates his most powerful lineage magic, Ahura Mazda, enveloping the area with overwhelming energy. His confident gaze and arrogant smile showed that he is certain of his victory, ready to judge everyone around him with the absolute power he has invoked. The prince finishes his attack with a devastating blow of holy flames, incinerating the monster mercilessly. With a cold look, he declares that the creature's fate was sealed the moment it dared cross his path. The monster is consumed by the flames as it screams in pain, disappearing completely. The explosion of power is so intense that it forces everyone present to instinctively protect themselves, and a wave of energy sweeps through the hall with overwhelming force. The body of the monster is thrown to the ground, charred and defeated. The smoke still rises as the group watches in silence, observing the end of the battle. The atmosphere is heavy, and the guests stare at the scene, shaken by the power they have witnessed. Prince Aster, surrounded by the commotion of the public, takes the opportunity to exalt himself and declare his strength to the country. Confidently, he announces his engagement to Sarah von Hartmann, stating that she will be the foundation of his future reign. The crowd reacts with enthusiasm, praising his power as if he were a national hero. With Aster's announcement being acclaimed, Hermes observes the situation with a critical eye. He states that in this country, everything is decided by the strength of hereditary magic. Aster's influence doesn't come from justice, but from the power he wields. Hermes concludes that no matter how much they fight, the nobility will always follow this unequal system, a reflection of the distorted reality of that society. Hermes, reflecting on everything he has witnessed, recalls his master's teachings about the decadent nobility, satisfied only with what they have inherited. Now, he fully understands. The capital, adorned with prestige and power, is actually a place corrupted by laziness, arrogance, and a false sense of merit. He faces this reality with contempt, fully aware of how distorted the prevailing system is. As the crowd gathers, everyone turns their attention to Sarah, praising her beauty and grace, calling her a saint worthy of legends. Compliments flood in, hailing her as a true noble lady and savior of the kingdom. Sarah, overwhelmed by the sudden adoration, stands frozen, unsure how to respond. Among the cheers, Katya watches silently, her face tense and dark. While everyone celebrates Sarah as the new saint, Katya's expression reveals jealousy and frustration, feeling overshadowed by the attention Sarah receives. The prince watches Sarah in silence and asks why she isn't responding to the crowd's cheers, telling her to lift her head with more pride. She stays still, her eyes hidden, an expression blank. Suddenly, a bright light flashes, and the prince freezes, feeling something strange. His eyes widen, and a chill runs down his spine, leaving him tense and uneasy. The prince suddenly feels a chill and spots a young man staring at him calmly from a distance. Something about him feels familiar, triggering a memory. Suspicious and uneasy, the prince demands to know who he is and why he's looking at him like that. The young man responds plainly. He's Hermes, a servant of Katya-sama. The prince is caught off guard by the name. The prince bursts into laughter after realizing Hermes is from the Flembard family, mocking him for being taken in by Katya. He ridicules Hermes, calling it a joke and labeling him as useless. Meanwhile, Hermes remains composed, reflecting silently. He remembers how the prince had him exiled like trash, not even worth acknowledging. To the prince, Hermes was never more than something to be discarded. The prince lashes out, accusing Hermes and Katya of joining forces out of resentment and even selling their souls for power. He brings up Hermes' exile and the broken engagement with Katya as proof. He claims they staged the monster attack to gain fame. Katya denies everything, calling his claims nonsense and saying it was his fault. The crowd turns against the prince, calling him a liar and demanding respect, clearly no longer trusting him. The prince, furious, commands the guards to arrest Hermes and Katya. As the soldiers begin to move, Hermes steps forward, surprising everyone. Before anyone can act, a firm voice interrupts with a loud, "Wait." The prince turns, recognizing the figure, and mutters, "You are." Katya's father, Jürgen von Trachea, steps in and halts the arrest order. He reminds everyone that the law clearly prohibits arrests without formal charges. The prince accuses him of once again covering up his daughter's crimes by abusing his position as Minister of Justice. Jürgen remains calm, stating the law is not up for interpretation. Jürgen makes it clear he's not favoring his daughter, reminding the prince that he also authorized the release of another noble recently arrested. Faced with that, the prince backs off, saying he's lost interest and that they're lucky for now. He then turns away and orders Sarah to leave with him. She hesitates but follows. As the crowd murmurs, calling the prince and Sarah frauds, Hermes steps forward, wanting to stop them, but Katya holds him back. Suddenly, a new figure appears, Hermes' older brother, who watches the situation unfold with a calm smile. He praises Hermes for the dramatic show and questions whether he truly thought things through. Hermes stays silent. Hermes argues that the prince twisted the facts for his benefit and slandered Katya with baseless claims. He points out how no one questioned those lies, even though they didn't make sense. That silence, he says, reflects the deeper issue within the kingdom. His brother replies coldly, "This is simply how the kingdom works. Those with superior magic lineage rule above others, and that's how the nation has always prospered." Hermes's brother coldly states that the prince rules with unmatched power, while those who oppose him are simply weak. He warns Hermes that one day he'll understand who the real threat to the kingdom is. Hermes clenches his fist in silence, his expression turning serious as night falls over the garden. Hermes reflects on the prince's overwhelming magic, recalling how easily he defeated a wyvern. Despite its power, Hermes didn't find the prince's control or skill particularly impressive, just raw force. He apologizes to Katya for the trouble, but she reassures him. Still, Hermes admits that his current magic can't compare to the prince's bloodline-based strength, which relies entirely on brute magical output, similar to what he saw from Count Eldridge. Hermes tells Katya that while he can't defeat the prince with his current power, he holds a different kind of magic, primordial inscription. This unique magic grows stronger without limit. The more he inscribes and uses bloodline magics, it's not about raw force now, but about building something far greater. Hermes declares with determination that he will surpass Prince Aster and prove him wrong. At the same time, he acknowledges he also has unfinished business with his brother, who blindly follows the prince. Hermes is ready to face both. Katya smiles and thanks Hermes for his resolve. She agrees they can prove their strength together. With determination, she declares they'll show everyone that their power is real and not to be underestimated. Hermes agrees with a firm yes. To restore Katya's ruined reputation, she and Hermes begin traveling across various regions, taking on difficult requests like hunting monsters other noble families can't handle, and exploring unclaimed dungeons. Believing that steady, honest work will eventually shift public opinion, they continue their efforts with patience and determination. One day, in response to a new request for help, Hermes and Katya head toward a remote village. As they arrive, someone is seen running in a hurry, setting the stage for something urgent awaiting them there. In the village, a young girl is attacked by a pack of savage wolves. One knocks her down while others close in, growling and ready to strike. She screams in terror, completely defenseless. Just in time, Katya steps in and unleashes her bloodline magic, Underworld of Salvation, Sotera Trivia. A powerful blast strikes the wolves, saving the girl. She looks up in awe, stunned by the sudden rescue. Katya approaches the girl, asking if she's okay. The child nods, still shaken. Soon after, her grandfather arrives, overwhelmed with emotion. He bows deeply and thanks them for saving his granddaughter's life, unsure how to repay such a debt. Hermes and Katya confirm the report was accurate. Monsters really had reached this isolated village. Katya explains it's a major dungeon overflow. When monsters inside a dungeon reproduce past a certain limit, they spill into the outside world and attack humans. It's a disaster that should never happen if dungeons are properly managed. Katya points out that the dungeon must have been left unattended, causing the overflow, and asks if the village reported it. The village chief confirms they did 2 weeks ago. A villager found what looked like a dungeon in the nearby forest. They immediately requested help from Viscount Norcia, their lord, but no aid ever came. Without a proper military force, the village was left defenseless. The village chief hands over letters from Viscount Norcia. Each time they asked for help, his only reply was, "For now, take measures on your own." Reading this, Katia is visibly upset. She can't believe he ignored the situation, even after people were harmed. Hermes calls out to her, noticing her reaction. Katia asks where Viscount Norcia is. The village chief says he's likely at a newly built frontline base a bit outside the village. Determined, Katia decides to confront him directly. She turns to Hermes and says, "Let's go." As Hermes and Katia walk through the forest, Hermes suddenly stops. He senses a strange presence nearby. He looks around carefully, certain he felt something just moments ago. Hidden in the bushes, a mysterious figure watches them in silence. The group arrives at the supply station, but to their shock, everything is gone. No weapons, no provisions, nothing. The girl looks around in disbelief, trying to understand why everything vanished, even though the monster's subjugation isn't over yet. The tension grows as they realize something is very wrong. The blonde boy detects a hidden presence and casts an explosive spell toward the bushes, revealing a man who had been following them. After capturing him effortlessly, he calmly apologizes while explaining that the man had been observing them for quite some time. The captured man refuses to speak, calling them heretics with disdain. The girl tries to interrogate him calmly, but seeing his defiant attitude, she changes her expression and prepares to use force. With a cold smile, the blonde boy nods, and soon after, the prisoner's screams fill the air. Terrified, the prisoner confesses that he acted under orders from Viscount Norcia. He had planned to sabotage Lady Trachea, forcing her to face the monsters alone, so he could intervene later and take all the credit. The girl is shocked when she realizes it was all a trap, deliberately set to discredit her. The man, furious, yells that it's all their fault, revealing that Viscount Norcia had been looking for a bride for his son. Upon hearing rumors about the daughter of the Trachea family, he personally attended a celebration to see her with his own eyes. The protagonists are stunned to learn that Norcia had been directly involved from the beginning, while the villagers' lives were still in danger. The boy analyzes the situation and concludes that the Viscount, angered by his failed attempt to arrange the marriage he wanted for his son, intentionally triggered the Great Overflow to damage Katia's reputation. Outraged, she accuses him of forgetting the most important duty of a noble to protect the people. Suddenly, the ground begins to shake violently. The three of them become alert as they feel the tremor, and soon a horde of monsters appears: ogres, horned beasts, and giant wolves charging toward them with fierce roars. A massive horde of monsters begins moving toward the village. Realizing the danger, the girl steps forward with determination in her eyes. She declares that she accepts the challenge and orders the captured man to deliver a message to the Viscount. Once the monsters are defeated, he'll be next. The boy calls out, begging Katia to stop, but she keeps running toward the monsters without hesitation. As she charges forward, memories of her mother resurface. She remembers that her mother wasn't a powerful mage, yet her strength came from something much deeper. Katia steels herself, drawing courage from that memory. Her mother once faced a massive horde of monsters during the Great Overflow. Despite lacking great magical power, she never ran away. She fought alone until the very end, holding on until reinforcements arrived. In the end, she gave her life to protect others, her final act of courage forever engraved in Katia's heart. Katia remembers her mother's final words to become a splendid aristocrat. With that memory burning in her heart, she steps forward fearlessly, facing the approaching horde of monsters head-on. Katia lets out a powerful scream filled with rage and sorrow as dark energy bursts around her. Fueled by anger, she yells at the monsters, blaming them for all the pain and destruction they've caused. Katia fiercely attacks the monsters, cutting them down one after another. Determined, she thinks that if she doesn't become stronger, she'll never be able to protect others like her mother did. Her resolve hardens as the battle grows fiercer. Katia keeps fighting relentlessly, striking down monster after monster. Exhausted but unwavering, she keeps moving forward despite being outnumbered. As the endless horde surrounds her, she clenches her fists and thinks that no matter what, she has to keep going. Surrounded by skeletal warriors rising from the darkness, Katia's eyes burn with fury and determination. Her magic surges wildly as she shouts her vow to destroy every single one of them without mercy. Herm catches Katia just as her strength begins to fade. Holding her tightly, he warns that she can't keep fighting like this. Her own magic is starting to consume her. Exhausted and trembling, Katia looks at him in shock as his words sink in. Herm gently reassures Katia, reminding her that she's not alone. His calm words break through her exhaustion as he tells her to remember that he's by her side. Renewing his resolve, he steps forward and begins to cast his own spell, ready to fight alongside her. Herm begins chanting an ancient spell, his voice steady and powerful. Katia recognizes the incantation, her eyes widening in surprise. As the magic circle expands behind them, Herm completes the spell, a devastating technique called Underworld of Salvation, Sotera Trivia, unleashing a wave of energy that engulfs the attacking monsters. Katia is amazed to see her magic being recreated. Herm confirms that he managed to reproduce it, though only on a surface level for now. Even so, the spell's power rivals that of noble-tier magic. He reassures her that her abilities are still growing, while Katia, flustered and impressed, realizes how far he's come. Herm extends his hand with a confident smile, telling Katia they'll win together. She looks at him warmly, her determination returning, and accepts his hand with a firm nod, ready to face whatever comes next by his side. Viscount Norcia watches arrogantly, convinced that Katia will soon beg for help. Enraged, he accuses the girl of using forbidden magic to deceive them and calls for her destruction for the good of the kingdom. His allies support him, labeling her a threat and a fraud. Viscount Norcia proudly reveals that Prince Aster will send reinforcements due to the great overflow. He's confident that Aster will become the next king and insists that everything is under control, claiming he would never allow a disaster without a countermeasure. Meanwhile, his subordinates whisper that he had planned the reinforcements from the start, waiting to see Katia fail. The Viscount shouts confidently that the Trachea family's reputation will fall and that he will receive recognition from the prince. However, Katia appears before him, defiant, apologizing sarcastically for not meeting his expectations. Firmly, she asks what will happen if she triumphs and who will take the blame for abandoning her. Katia confronts the Viscount calmly, showing him the battlefield covered in slain monsters. He freezes, unable to believe it. Herm steps in, telling them that before calling it impossible, they should see it with their own eyes, and if they still refuse to accept it, they'll only prove their own blindness. Katia faces the Viscount with determination, making it clear that she has no intention of stopping. She declares that, unlike those who hide behind excuses and forget their duties, she will keep proving her strength and protect the people of the kingdom, determined to show who she truly is. After the monster's defeat, peace finally returns to the village. Katia and Herm are welcomed with gratitude by the villagers, while the Viscount retreats, filled with anger and humiliation. Thus, their mission concludes, leaving behind a safe village and newfound respect. The news that Katia contained the great overflow spreads quickly among the nobles. Some accuse her of using forbidden magic, while others begin to acknowledge her talent and call for her position to be reconsidered. Gradually, public opinion starts to shift in her favor. One day, while Herm is shopping at the market, he notices a little girl who has fallen and is crying from the pain. As he approaches to help her, he sees a hooded woman healing the wound with magic, which immediately catches his attention. The girls are astonished to see their wound completely healed and excitedly ask if the hooded woman is a mage. She confirms with a smile, but asks them to keep it a secret. The girls thank her joyfully as the mysterious woman walks away quietly. Turning a corner, Herm accidentally bumps into the hooded woman. Both are startled, and upon seeing her up close, Herm recognizes her instantly. It's Sarah von Hartmann, clearly someone of importance. Sarah tenses up upon recognizing him. With a nervous expression, she murmurs that he's Katia's servant. The tension rises as flashes of the past appear, revealing this isn't just a casual encounter. Nervously, Sarah introduces herself as Prince Aster's fiancée, though she admits her role is purely symbolic and holds no real influence. She apologizes, afraid of being judged, but Herm calmly assures her that he has no intention of harming her, leaving her surprised and relieved. Uncertain, Sarah asks if Herm plans to kidnap her to negotiate with Prince Aster, but he denies it with composure. He explains that his group only wants the prince to acknowledge his mistakes and mentions that Katia was worried about her. Sarah is shocked to hear this, while Herm describes Katia as a kind and modest girl, not someone who flaunts her power. Katia, remembering the past, thinks about how Sarah had been in shock during that incident and probably couldn't oppose the prince because of her personality. Even so, she hopes Sarah doesn't blame herself now. Hearing this, Sarah is deeply moved, unable to believe Katia's compassion toward her. Sarah bursts into tears, realizing that Katia had always cared about her, despite believing she was hated. Herm sincerely apologizes for the misunderstanding and suggests they go somewhere quieter to continue talking. They walk away together, seeking a calm spot under a tree. Sarah recalls her school days, explaining that she was initially rejected by others because of her low social standing, even though she possessed 2 bloodline magics. No one could tolerate that, but Katia approached her kindly and offered her friendship, something she never forgot. Herm acknowledges Sarah's situation, understanding that the kingdom's corrupt politics were what separated her and Katia. Still, he reminds her that her betrayal of Katia cannot be denied, though he understands the reasons. However, he emphasizes that both women still matter deeply to each other, and that in such a rotten world, people like her can still make a difference. Herm reflects that in the kingdom, everyone blindly follows the powerful, treating any doubt or defiance as something wrong. He learned that harsh truth after arriving in the capital. Yet he mentions that Katya is an exception, a truly just noble, rare in such a corrupt place. Sarah confesses that she still deeply respects Katya, admiring her determination to stay true to her convictions. Herm nods understandingly and promises to convey those sincere feelings to Katya. Then, grateful for her honesty, he offers her personal advice, showing empathy and respect toward her. Herm tells Sarah that she underestimates the power of the human heart. According to him, she belittles her own feelings, treating them as if they have no value or don't belong to her. He points out that she seems indifferent to what happens to her, and though he says it gently, his words leave her surprised and thoughtful. Herm explains that within her, there must exist a genuine feeling, something not imposed or forced, but born from her own heart. Sarah, surprised, starts to think about it, a feeling that truly belongs to her. Herm tells her that if she follows that feeling, things might turn out better than she expects, giving her a spark of hope. Herm tells Sarah that he's convinced she can become even more charming, which leaves her completely flustered and unsure how to react. Noticing her expression, he quickly apologizes, nervous, saying he didn't mean to flatter her that way and that it might have sounded like flirting. Embarrassed, Sarah barely manages to say it's fine, as they both blush awkwardly. Somewhat nervous, Sarah stops Herm just as he's about to leave. With her heart racing, she asks what he would do if she decided to follow her feelings, even if that put her in conflict with them. Herm looks at her calmly and replies with a soft smile that the answer is obvious, making it clear that she already knows it within herself. Herm smiles gently and tells Sarah that if the time ever comes for them to face each other, they'll do it honorably and with fairness, letting their emotions fill their magic. He explains that this is the true purpose of magic, to express the feelings of the heart. Sarah watches him silently, moved, wondering how his words always manage to reach so deeply. A few days later, rumors spread through the capital. The nobles whisper that the young lady of the Trachea family has conquered another dungeon, one that other nobles couldn't handle. They also mention her young servant, praising his skill. One of them, surprised, says he knows him. It's Hermes, a former member of the Flembreed family, once known as a prodigy child. Prince Aster receives news about the young lady of the Trachea family, praised for her achievements and becoming the center of attention among the nobles of the capital. While listening to the report, he appears thoughtful and mentions the name of his servant, Hermes. A young prodigy displays an impressive level of magical power, forcing his opponent to surrender. Even at just 5 years old, he masters complex spells that leave his teachers astonished. Everyone believes he is destined to become the greatest mage in the kingdom. Since childhood, Prince Aster had been praised by everyone for his talent and intelligence, called a genius and a divine blessing. Convinced that no one could rival him, he believed frustration was something he would never experience until the day he met a certain person. During a trip, Aster spots a fire in the distance. As he approaches, he realizes the flames have already consumed the house. A desperate man cries for help, saying his daughter is still trapped inside, while Aster watches the scene in silence. Aster sees a boy approach the river and start drawing a magic circle. He wonders what the boy is trying to do, thinking it's impossible for someone without lineage magic to achieve anything like that. However, the boy seems about to perform a feat that defies all logic. The boy raises the river water, shaping it into birds that fly over the fire and extinguish the flames. Everyone is stunned by his power. The water falls like rain, saving the house and the girl trapped inside. The father, overwhelmed with emotion, runs to embrace the son who performed the miracle, the young Hermes, while Aster watches in silence, astonished by such ability. That night, Aster wakes up, sweating and breathless, remembering the scene of the fire. He realizes he has never seen magic as beautiful and powerful as Hermes's. Despite being the same age, he feels the sting of frustration he cannot surpass him. Driven by frustration, Aster begins training harder than ever before. For the first time in his life, he puts in real effort, trying to catch up to Hermes. Yet, no matter how much he trains, the gap between them only widens. He wonders if he should admit that Hermes is more talented, but refuses to accept it. Unable to face the truth, Aster hides his pain behind arrogance. When he hears that Hermes has no lineage magic, he forces a laugh, mocking the idea. Deep down, he knows that accepting the truth would shatter him completely. Consumed by envy and pride, Aster declares himself the strongest in the kingdom and the true one chosen by God. Refusing to acknowledge anyone above him, he orders the exile of Hermes von Flembreed. A young woman named Katya arrives at a grand mansion, walking with a serious expression. As she approaches, a hooded girl appears and greets her respectfully, calling her Lady Katya. Katia meets a blonde woman and, in a polite tone, apologizes for the unexpected visit. She then asks if the woman has a moment to talk. Katia and Sarah meet under the moonlight, and Sarah explains that she received Prince Aster's permission to see her, though she wasn't allowed to come alone. Katia senses a powerful magical presence nearby and suspects that the mage accompanying Sarah might not just be an escort. Katia suspects the meeting could be a trap, but decides to listen as Sarah shows sincere regret. Crying, Sarah apologizes deeply, surprising Katia with her honesty. Sarah confesses she acted cruelly toward Katia during a celebration and begs for forgiveness. Katia, calm and composed, reassures her, saying she already knows of her regret. Hermes had told her everything and that she understands her feelings. Sarah laments not having told Katia about her arranged marriage to the prince, but Katia comforts her, saying she understands. She admits she no longer cares about maintaining the position of royal fiancé and knows Sarah isn't acting out of ambition, showing maturity and empathy. Katia looks straight at Sarah and asks if she truly wants to be the prince's fiancé. Ignoring politics, she says she only wants to hear Sarah's true feelings, making it clear that this is why she came. Sarah, emotional and conflicted, struggles to find words to answer. Before Sarah can reply, a sudden magical attack strikes a nearby tower. Katia senses danger approaching and quickly begins to cast a defensive spell to protect them both. Sarah is hit by a sudden magic blast, severely wounded right before Katia's eyes. Shocked, Katia tries to react as she watches her friend collapse to the ground, bleeding and unconscious. Katia rushes to Sarah in panic, calling her name and begging her to hold on. Relieved to feel her still breathing, she quickly realizes the wound is grave, and that if she doesn't act fast, Sarah's life will be in danger. Katia senses the enemy's presence and recognizes the magic used in the attack. With a determined gaze, she identifies the culprit, the magic bullet archer. Katia wonders why the attack targeted Sarah instead of her. As she tries to help her, people nearby gather in fear upon seeing the blood and injured body. A man claims to have seen everything, drawing attention to the incident. A man accuses Katia of attacking Sarah with magic and pushing her from the platform. Shocked, she tries to defend herself, insisting it wasn't her spell and that the whole thing is a setup to frame her. The magic bullet archer approaches with a cold smile, accusing Katia of lying. He claims everyone saw what happened and that she attacked Sarah on purpose. Pretending to act under authority, he orders her to surrender, turning the situation into the perfect trap to incriminate her. Enraged, Katia threatens the archer and demands he prepare for the consequences. He laughs mockingly, finding the situation amusing, and says he only did it because of her, revealing his hatred and premeditated intent. The archer mocks Katia, saying she acts like a hero after mastering her lineage magic and slaying monsters. With a sneer, he declares that the true hero of the kingdom is Prince Aster. Outraged, Katia confronts him, calling Aster selfish and warning that his arrogance will eventually bring ruin. The archer retorts that the ruin she predicts never came to pass. He claims the kingdom was united under Prince Aster's command, and that even the recent disasters were only allowed because of her. Coldly, he shifts all the blame for the instability onto her shoulders. The archer accuses Katia of being the true cause of the kingdom's misfortunes, saying her arrogance put everyone at risk. Pointing to Sarah, wounded, he declares that Katia's blind justice is what caused her suffering. Katia, in shock, tries to defend herself, but her words sound powerless against his manipulation. Katia defends Sarah from the taunts of other students, firmly scolding them. Embarrassed, Sarah apologizes and admits she always relies on Katia's help, but feels she can never return the favor. Katia assures Sarah that her kindness helps her too, and that nothing will change between them. With a sincere smile, she promises they'll stay friends no matter what others say, and Sarah, moved, agrees happily. Katia looks at her blood-stained hands, overcome with despair, realizing that even her dearest friend was hurt because of her. Shaken, she starts blaming herself, believing she is the one who brought chaos to the kingdom. After Katia's arrest, two nobles discuss what happened. One firmly believes she was falsely accused, while the other concludes that Prince Aster and his allies planned everything to frame her. They lament that proving her innocence will be difficult, as even the magical traces might have been tampered with. After Katia's arrest, Sarah is taken to the palace under the pretext of receiving treatment, but there are suspicions this is a way to erase magical evidence. Katia's allies discuss how to prove her innocence, gathering testimonies and evidence, but they know it will take time. One of them fears the prince intends to punish her before the truth comes to light. Hermes, gripped by urgency, decides he can't wait and declares he will rescue Katia by force. However, his companion interrupts him, saying he understands Hermes' sense of debt, but believes he has already done enough for her. The man warns Hermes that if he continues, he will be consumed by the darkness of the capital. He explains that the kingdom is cruel, ruled by nobles who fear losing power and cling to lineage magic to set themselves apart from commoners. Trapped in a never-ending cycle, they live blinded by arrogance, never seeking change or growth. The man compares the royal capital to a hell inside a cage, a place from which it is almost impossible to escape. He reveals that Hermes' former master left the city because she was tired of that corrupted environment, and he admits he envies her for having had the courage to leave. The man reminds Hermes of his true goal, creating a new magic. He warns that if Hermes keeps getting involved in court affairs, he will stray from his path and get into trouble. Determined, Hermes says he will do everything he can to save Katia. Even if he can't prove her innocence, he will at least prevent her execution. Hermes reflects on the capital's corruption and understands why his master chose to abandon it. He admits the place is terrible and recognizes that even his interlocutor must have witnessed many injustices, enough to almost lose hope. Hermes recalls Katia's and Sarah's words and actions, realizing there are still people who follow their ideals and believe in good. With that, he reaffirms his hope: so long as people like them exist, there will still be light and salvation for the capital. With a resolute gaze, Hermes declares that he wants to completely destroy the birdcage, the metaphor for the corrupt capital. Inspired by the earlier words, he decides to end the system that imprisons and corrupts people. Surprising his interlocutor, Hermes acknowledges the risks, but says he wants to save Katia simply because he wants to. The man before him smiles, saying that such a selfish reason suits Hermes perfectly, and for that reason, he decides to trust him. Hermes chooses to act immediately, determined to save Katia. His ally urges him to use all the power he can, saying there is no time for conventional methods. Resolute, Hermes accepts without hesitation and sets off for the rescue. Hermes arrives at the place where Katia is imprisoned. Remembering when she helped him in the past, he vows to return the favor and promises to rescue her no matter the cost. During a tense discussion, a man asks Katia's father to rein in his daughter's impulsive actions to avoid further conflict with Prince Astor's aristocrats. Katia's father ends the confrontation, visibly exhausted. After the visitor leaves, Katia questions him, and he confirms the man was from the legal department, making clear the political weight of the situation. Worried, Katia asks her father if her actions of eliminating monsters in other territories were causing problems. He answers with pride, saying that, thanks to her, many people were saved, and that she must continue doing what she believes is right. However, her actions ended up intensifying the conflict between the legal department and the aristocrats. Katia recalls her mother's advice to become an exemplary noble. Since then, she has devoted her life to fulfilling her responsibilities and doing the right thing, trying to follow that ideal. However, she begins to question whether she truly walked the right path. Imprisoned and overwhelmed by guilt, Katia looks at Sarah's injured body and wonders whether everything she has done until now was really right. Two guards talk about Katia's arrest, calling her defective and remarking that she didn't resist capture, which makes them believe she confessed to the crime. Meanwhile, the young man searching for her listens in hiding and is surprised to learn she let herself be taken without resisting, even though she is innocent. The young man ambushes the guards watching Katia, knocking them out quickly. After defeating them, he apologizes coolly, saying he bears no grudge and prepares to continue his rescue mission. The young man informs a guard that he has authorization from the Ministry of Justice to use all necessary power. Meanwhile, Katia remains alone and silent in her cell. Hermes reaches the cell where Katia is imprisoned and apologizes for the delay. Surprised, she asks how he managed to get there. He calmly explains that he used forbidden spells and techniques to erase his presence, infiltrate, and neutralize the guards just so he could rescue her. Herm then unlocks the cell, ready to get her out of there. With a downcast look, Katia says she doesn't intend to leave prison, feeling guilty for her mistakes. She believes her actions caused Sarah's severe injuries and calls it a crime born of her selfishness. Hermes, shocked, tries to understand her words and deny her guilt. Shaken, Katia screams in regret for her actions, believing she only caused more chaos by trying to scold the prince and acting on her own. She says the kingdom worsened because of her and that Hermes should no longer get involved with her. Hermes tries to protest, but he is taken aback by Katia's coldness as she decides to push him away so as not to cause him more trouble. Katia speaks coldly, saying Hermes stayed by her side only because he felt indebted. She acknowledges his dedication, but urges him to follow his true interest, magic. She says he seems more alive when he is studying and releases him from any obligation, asking him to live freely and follow his own path. Katia remembers her mother, a noble and kind woman who protected others' happiness, and confesses she always wanted to be like her. She believes she was fulfilling her responsibilities as an aristocrat, fighting to honor the promise she made. Now, however, she realizes that everything she did does not match the true meaning of being a noble. Katia cries out in despair, recognizing that she caused turmoil in the kingdom and put people in danger out of pure selfishness. She admits she even hurt those close to her, feeling the weight of guilt for her reckless actions. Katia notices Hermes is crying and, surprised, asks why. He tries to hide it, but the moment reveals how emotionally shaken he is by the pain and guilt she feels over everything that happened. Hermes realizes he is crying without knowing why, feeling a deep pain in his heart despite not being wounded. Katia watches, surprised, and he, with a calm look, accepts his feelings, understanding how much he cares for her. Hermes fully understands Katia's feelings and empathizes with her pain. He smiles softly, saying that if he is crying, it's because she is suffering and that affects him deeply. Even so, he is glad he can understand what she feels. With a serious expression, Hermes admits Katia is right. He confesses he put his obsession with magic above everything, including her. Since the day he was expelled from the Flembreed family, his feelings and emotions grew faint not only toward Katia, but toward everyone around him. Hermes recalls his past, explaining that, to protect himself, he ended up erasing his own feelings. He stopped caring about anything other than magic, casting off pain and sadness, and also joy. Over time, he realized he had lost something even more important, his own heart. Katia watches in silence, feeling the weight of those words. Hermes remembers that he returned to the royal capital in search of something he had lost, his heart. Driven by the desire to recover that feeling, he began to approach people who still possessed genuine emotions. It was then that, upon meeting Katia again, he felt joy for the first time in a long while, and sadness when he saw her suffering. Now he understands. She was the one who made him remember what it is to truly feel. Emotional, Hermes finally opens his heart. He says he is not at Katia's side out of guilt or debt, but because he truly wants to be with her. His voice trembles as he admits he hates the idea of a world where she does not exist. Katia watches, surprised, touched by the sincere words that break the cold tone he always kept. With tearful eyes, Katia confesses this is the first time Hermes speaks openly about what he feels. She admits she always felt insecure, thinking she was the only one swayed by emotions. Now, seeing his sincerity, she tries to say something, reaching out her hand to him, but the words barely come out. Hurried footsteps echo down the corridor. Hermes and Katia turn, alarmed, as they hear the guards approaching. Voices order them to capture him at once. Hermes grasps the gravity of the situation and murmurs, with a steady gaze, that their time is up. Hermes grips Katia by the shoulders and looks her firmly in the eyes. He says that at this moment he can't resolve her dilemmas, but asks a direct question. Do you want to die? Katia is silent, startled. Hermes presses, asking whether she truly thinks it is right to let her life end like this. With a shaken look, she finally answers in a low voice. No, Katia cries out with tears in her eyes, saying, of course she doesn't want to die, there are still many things she wants to do. Hermes holds her hand tightly and with a faint smile, replies that as long as she feels that way, that's enough. With a determined look, Hermes extends his hand to Katia and promises to keep living by her side. Amid the chaos and flames, the guards try to reach them, but Hermes holds her tight, and using his magic, the two escape into the night, flying under the moonlight. Hermes carries Katia in his arms and warns he is going to speed up. She clings to him tightly as they shoot across the sky, leaving the prison behind and disappearing beneath the glow of the full moon. In the moonlit night, a soldier rushes to the throne and informs the prince that Lady Katia has escaped from prison with the help of her mage servant. The prince reacts in surprise, while the man seated on the throne watches in silence, clearly irritated by the news. Hermes tries to justify himself before the prince, but he is interrupted by the prince's fury, who accuses him of always ruining his plans, especially now that Katia had been captured. Seized by rage, the prince decides to act personally, stating he can no longer leave the matter in others' hands. Consumed by fury, the prince declares he will personally capture Katia. He curses the demons that brought chaos to the kingdom and promises to show who the true mage chosen by God is. Calling Chris, he orders him to accompany him to correct the mistake of letting her escape. The prince visits Sarah after her treatment and asks about her recovery. He explains that she was gravely wounded by Katia's magic attack, though she may not remember what happened. The prince tells Sarah that Katia betrayed her, even if that seems impossible to believe. Determined, Sarah asks to accompany him, saying she wants to see with her own eyes how he will resolve the dispute with Katia. The prince smiles in satisfaction to see that Sarah recognizes Katia's true face. He allows her to accompany him and orders the soldiers to prepare, promising to set out at dawn to personally defeat the supposed demons. Sarah watches the prince walk away and murmurs Hermes's name, remembering him with a melancholy look. Alone under the moonlight, she questions whether she really did the right thing. During a pause in the forest, Kadia comments on how Hermes seems used to camping. He smiles and explains that when he trained with his master, it was common to spend nights in remote places while exploring dungeons. Hermes asks Kadia for patience and assures her that Jurgen will prove her innocence. Seeing her dejected, he suggests she rest, recalling what he learned from his master. When the body is tired, the mind fills with negative thoughts. Hermes prepares a simple soup of vegetables and dried meat. Kadia tastes it and praises the flavor, surprised that he made something so good with so few ingredients. Smiling, she says he is amazing. Hermes asks if Kadia will be able to sleep despite the discomfort. She responds that she will. While she rests, he keeps watch, aware that at dawn, the prince's troops will begin to search for them. While Kadia sleeps, Hermes promises to protect her until her innocence is proven. He reflects on his impulsiveness when he suddenly senses something strange approaching and goes on alert. Kadia wakes up frightened and calls out to Hermes. He answers calmly, assuring her he is there, trying to reassure her while she is still trying to understand what happened. Kadia runs to Hermes in a panic, saying she cannot see anything. Desperate, she asks if something happened to her eyes, while Hermes tries to calm her and understand what is happening. Katie experiences total darkness for the first time, something rare outside the illuminated capital. Frightened, she clings to Hermes, who tries to calm her while casting a light spell to drive away the darkness. Hermes casts a light spell and dispels the danger. Katia, surprised and relieved, realizes there is nothing wrong with her eyes. The darkness was only magical. Katie blushes and is at a loss for words after the tense moment. Embarrassed, Hermes tries to lighten the situation with humor, but she panics, asking him to stop and saying she would rather die of embarrassment. The next morning, Hermes and Katie decide to go to a nearby village to resupply. There, they meet the village chief again, who recognizes them immediately and welcomes them with surprise and joy. The village chief thanks Hermes and Katie for having helped his village in the past, offering anything they need. Katie responds with gratitude and promises to repay the favor in her family's name, but the man insists that they are the ones still in debt. A little girl runs excitedly to Katie, recognizing her as the person who saved her before. Happy, she thanks her and pulls Katie by the hand to show something, while the village chief and Hermes are surprised by the scene. The little girl leads Katie and Hermes to a construction site where several villagers are working, digging, and rebuilding the area. Surprised, Katie watches the progress and tries to understand what is happening. The chief explains that they are digging a moat and building watchtowers to protect the village from monsters. The little girl says excitedly that everyone has been working together since Katie saved them. The man comments that, inspired by her, the villagers decided to act on their own, without relying solely on the nobles. The villagers explain that they are now united to fight and protect their own home, something they never imagined doing before. They thank Katie, saying it was thanks to her that the village changed. Touched, Katie tries to deny it, feeling guilty for believing that the monsters attacked because of her. Katie watches the villagers working with determination and realizes that saying it was all her fault would be disrespectful to their effort. In silence, she understands that these people decided to fight on their own and that her words could offend the courage they now show. The little girl excitedly says that she started studying magic, saying there is a type that even she can use. Even without being an aristocrat, she promises to work hard to become a great mage. Inspired by Katie, Katie looks at the horizon and with a distant gaze, whispers her mother's name. Hermes notices something different about her, while the little girl and the others watch in silence, not understanding what is happening. Katie remembers her mother's words about being an exemplary aristocrat and protecting the people. She realizes she was bound to that idea the whole time, treating the villagers as weak when in truth, they showed a strength far greater than she imagined. As the group says goodbye to the villagers, they sincerely thank them for all the help they received. Katie reflects that what she experienced there was much more meaningful than she ever imagined. Hermes asks the village chief to prioritize everyone's safety if their pursuers appear. After saying goodbye, he and Katie continue on in silence, while the villagers wish them good luck. As they walk together, Hermes notices that Katie seems calmer and more confident. He feels that something inside her has changed for the better after everything they went through. Later that day, the prince arrives at the village accompanied by his men. With a cold look, he demands to know the whereabouts of a purple-haired woman and a silver-haired man. The village chief grows tense before the prince, remembering Hermes' words. Firmly, he denies knowing whom he is talking about, even as he feels the noble's threatening gaze on him. The prince glares at the village chief in anger, feeling challenged. Even under pressure, The man remains calm and says he knows nothing about the people the prince is looking for. After a tense silence, the prince decides to back off. He says that it is enough and orders them to move on, but casts a spell before leaving a sense of threat in the air. The prince discovers magical traces left by Hermes and Katie, confirming they had been in the village. Smiling coldly, he realizes the chief lied and swears not to let this go unpunished. With coldness, the prince orders the village to be burned, showing no remorse for the people who live there. Hermes perceives a smell of smoke and is alarmed. Looking toward the horizon, both discover in horror that the village is in flames. The flames consume the village while the soldiers watch the fire ravage everything. The prince orders them to search for survivors and let no one escape. Katie tries to run toward the burning village, worried about the villagers, but Hermes stops her to prevent her from approaching the fire. Suddenly, the village chief and the others appear, alive, calling to her in relief. Katie and Hermes reunite with the villagers, relieved to see that everyone is safe. The chief explains that Prince Aster arrived before the fire and left shortly before everything burned. The girl reveals that a blonde Oni-chan saved them, leaving Katie surprised. In the midst of the fire, a man shields the girl from the flames when a mysterious blonde-haired girl appears. Using a powerful lineage magic called Spirit Veil, Theurgy, she creates a barrier that covers them and saves them from the flames. The blonde girl shouts to the villagers to escape as she opens a path with her magic. She manages to protect them from the flames, heal their wounds, and save those who could not flee. However, she disappears before they can thank her. Katie, surprised, murmurs her name, Sarah. The villagers lament the total destruction of their home and the structures they had built with effort. Katie, with a somber face, blames herself for what happened, believing it all occurred because she got involved with them. Hermes tries to stop her, assuring her it is not her fault. An arrogant-looking man appears before Katie and the villagers, mocking them as he confirms that she had indeed gone to the village. With a cold smile, he accuses her of protecting commoners while being a criminal, hinting that everyone could pay for hiding her. The man orders all the villagers to be captured, suspecting they helped the criminals escape. Katie steps in to defend them, shouting that they have done nothing wrong, while Hermes takes her by the arm, trying to stop her. Herm looks at Katia with determination and asks her to allow him to handle the enemy alone. Surprised, Katia can barely respond, while the other man watches him, confused by his sudden declaration. Herm stares at his brother and challenges him. If he manages to defeat him, he must promise not to hurt anyone. In return, if he loses, they can capture everyone. He then asks Katia to contact Lord Jurgen to help with the evacuation and put out the fire. Katia, though worried, nods and agrees. Brother and brother face each other inside a church. Herm coldly asks if he did not stop Prince Aster's actions, accusing him of having allowed a tragedy to occur. He reminds him that many villagers lost their homes and could have died, questioning whether he feels nothing about that. Herm's brother explodes with fury, blindly defending Prince Aster. He shouts that he is the most outstanding person in the kingdom and that those who do not obey him deserve punishment. He proudly claims to be his right hand and that no one understands him better, while Herm watches with a mix of disappointment and sadness. The brother shows himself completely insensitive, saying the villagers were only unimportant commoners, barely 100 people. He claims their deaths have no value and that, in truth, they served as an example of what happens when defying Prince Aster. Herm, shocked and hurt, can barely respond to such cruelty. Herm's brother, filled with rage, shouts at him to stop looking at him with those eyes of superiority. He says Herm has never changed, that he has always looked down on him. Herm remains serious, knowing that talking will no longer help. With a gaze full of fury, Herm's brother accepts the duel. He shouts that he will make him remember how useless he is and prove that he is the true mage destined to be at the top. The scene suddenly shifts, showing a mansion under the sun, while the phrase appears 12 years ago. The memory shows a child being praised by his father. Hermes had managed to create a complex magic circle, and his father proudly congratulates him, calling him a prodigy. Meanwhile, Herm watches from behind, in silence. In his thoughts, he remembers that he never received words of praise, nor a hand that patted his head. The father shouts in fury, striking Herm and comparing him to his younger brother. He tells him that Hermes managed to do it effortlessly and humiliates him for not being at his level. He then throws a spellbook at him, ordering him to master them before dawn if he wants to be recognized as the worthy heir of the Flembird family. Exhausted, Herm struggles to understand the complicated magic circles covering the floor. Although he feels like his head is going to explode, he forces himself to continue. With determination, he thinks that if he manages to do it, his father will praise him someday too. Outside, the night advances in silence, while he continues studying without rest. Herm successfully activates all the spells. Excited, he runs to his father to show what he accomplished, hoping to finally receive his recognition. However, upon arriving and calling out to him with a big smile, his expression changes when he sees the man's reaction, anticipating that he will not obtain the approval he so desires. Herm enthusiastically practices his levitation magic, making a teapot float and serving tea with precision. Seeing this, his father is stunned, surprised that his son mastered such a delicate spell in so little time. Hermes smiles, happy for the praise, while his older brother watches in silence from the back, feeling the weight of the comparison once again. Completely impressed by Hermes' talent, the father excitedly declares that the position of heir of the Flembreed family will be his. He asserts that his younger son could even surpass his own power. Meanwhile, the older brother, who watches from the doorway with a tight heart, turns and leaves in silence, overwhelmed by sadness and the feeling of being left behind. With his face covered by the shadow of frustration, the older brother sets fire to all the magic circles he had drawn with such effort. Surprised, Hermes runs in upon seeing him and tries to stop him, not understanding why he is doing it. Desperate, he begs him to stop, reminding him that those were the spells he had worked so hard on. But his brother does not respond, letting the flames consume everything in silence. Filled with resentment, the older brother brusquely pushes Hermes away and blames him for all his suffering. He shouts that because of him nothing in his life goes right, and that being by his side makes him feel miserable. Hermes stands paralyzed, tears forming in his eyes, while the fire continues consuming the papers behind them, reflecting the definitive rupture between the two. The older brother coldly remembers the moment he learned that Hermes had no lineage magic. In his mind, he admits that it was he who taught him that effort does not always bear fruit, and upon knowing it, he felt relieved, almost satisfied. Meanwhile, the young Hermes appears alone and dejected, locked behind bars, marking the beginning of a grudge that had been brewing for years. Herm's brother shouts in fury, laughing as he points at him. He says he deserves it, that he never understood how miserable he made him feel, and that he should make him feel that same pain. In his mind, he believes that by doing so, he will finally free himself from his inferiority complex. Although deep down he knows he is only deceiving himself. The brothers face each other with firm, weary gazes. The elder, with a face full of contained rage, demands to know how long Herm will torment his life. Without wavering, Herm replies that he is also fed up with everything, and that he will put an end to their discord once and for all. Both prepare for a duel that is not only of magic, but of feelings accumulated over years. Both brothers unleash their magic with force. The elder invokes his spell, shouting, "6 are the sacred bows, 1 the magic bullet, and its trigger, the arm of a false god," while his energy gathers in his hand. Herm responds calmly but firmly. Thus the world originated. The infallible truth is engraved here, without distinction between heaven and earth, all for the single miracle. Both release their spells at the same time, filling the place with light and power, ready to decide the fate of their conflict. Both cast their spells at the same time, and the impact makes the place tremble, destroying part of the building with an explosion of magical energy. The boy holds his grimoire and activates a complex spell, creating a massive arcane circle behind him. With a firm gesture, he launches multiple energy projectiles while shouting, "Magical bullet archer, Mistaltina." From afar, another mage watches him with annoyance, muttering that he's using that spell again. The enemy unleashes a powerful attack, yelling in fury that he can only stay calm for a moment. The boy watches the offensive without flinching, thinking that his opponent plans to go for a direct exchange. With determination, he activates his grimoire and prepares to counterattack with all his might. The boy dodges an explosion that shatters the ground around him. Shocked, he opens his eyes wide at the magnitude of the attack he barely avoided. In front of him, the magical energy keeps striking violently, throwing debris everywhere. He notices the enemy's attacks are growing stronger. The other mage laughs arrogantly, proud of his power boost. Without losing composure, the young man stands among the rubble, declaring that he too has grown stronger and hasn't even shown all his power yet. The boy senses a powerful magical energy emanating from his opponent's body. Surprised, he asks what he's hiding in his chest. The other smiles confidently, raising his hand as his power gathers, saying he'll reveal the truth behind his strength. The boy is stunned when his opponent reveals an object, a staff decorated with wings and a serpent. The mage smiles proudly, declaring that it's a divine artifact called Caduceus, personally granted by Prince Aster for this battle. The boy realizes his rival uses the artifact to amplify his magical power. With a confident grin, the other lifts the staff, saying his strength isn't limited to that. The energy around him surges as he announces he'll show the true power of his magical bullet archer. With a crazed expression, the mage channels his power through the staff, surrounding himself in flames. Raising his blazing weapon, he shouts the name of his spell, "Magical bullet archer, Mistaltina." as a surge of magical fire shoots out with devastating force. The boy watches the fire-covered bullets flying toward him. Feeling their power, he realizes he can't block them. With no time to waste, he runs through the flames, destroying everything in their path. The mage mocks him, boasting that his caduceus staff enhances his bullets with fire, making them far more powerful. The boy analyzes the situation carefully, acknowledging the artifact's strength but determined to find a way to defeat him. With an arrogant smile, the mage decides to end the fight and unleashes a rain of flames on his opponent. The boy barely manages to react, shielding himself as fire consumes everything around. Laughing madly, the mage proclaims that this is his true magic, showing the absolute power of the magical bullet archer. He proudly claims that someone who merely imitates spells could never reach such mastery, while his rival is blown back by the explosion. With a deranged look, the mage screams that he's superior in everything power, talent, and magic. Mocking cruelly, he calls his opponent a failure, convinced of his absolute victory. In a memory, a woman performs a ritual before a child, handing him a shining grimoire. She tells him the inheritance is complete, and for now, that inscription belongs to him. The boy, amazed by the book's power, listens as she asks what he can see inside it. The child looks into the grimoire, seeing a complex series of symbols and runes he can't understand. The woman nods with a smile and explains that what he's seeing is the primordial inscription, an ancient form of magic he has just inherited. She explains that magic isn't a divine gift, but a science created by humans based on logical principles. The primordial inscription represents that foundation, containing 69 types of magical languages and over 300 circle patterns. She tells him that if he learns them, he'll be able to use any kind of magic, even without a magical bloodline. The woman goes on to explain that aristocrats are born with hereditary magic and can use it naturally, without effort. But she makes it clear that his case is different if he wants to reach that level. He must study and train much harder. Then she looks at him seriously and asks what he thinks about that. She asks the boy what he feels after hearing how hard it is to use magic without lineage. He stares at the glowing grimoire and, with a sincere smile, says that he thinks magic is beautiful. The boy gazes at the intricate grimoire, admitting he doesn't understand anything yet, but still feels that magic is beautiful. He believes those who created it worked very hard, and with a determined look, he expresses his wish to one day understand it. The boy begins to study with dedication, filled with curiosity to discover how and why magic was created. While writing in his notebook, he promises himself that one day he'll fully understand and master it. Over time, the boy faces many failures and moments of frustration. Though his path isn't easy, he never gives up. His passion for magic and his desire to learn push him forward, refusing to let hardships stop him. He faces countless obstacles and frustrations, but keeps moving forward. Though his training is difficult, his love for magic and his drive to improve motivate him to continue without surrender. Wounded but steadfast, the boy faces his brother, saying he understands nothing. He raises his grimoire, declaring that the true essence and beauty of magic aren't about mere spells of power. Determined to prove his strength, the boy activates his technique and casts a spell with resolve. He reproduces the magical bullet archer, Mistaltina, imbuing it with an ice attribute, creating a massive barrier of crystals that confronts his brother's flames. Surrounded by icy energy, the boy advances firmly while his grimoire shines. Looking at his shocked brother, he calmly says that the lesson isn't over yet, making it clear the fight is far from finished. The brother watches in awe as the boy combines ice and water attributes. Standing on a field of crystals, his grimoire glows brightly while the air around him freezes with overwhelming power. The brother yells furiously, believing his opponent just copied his magic. But the boy remains calm, recognizing that the enchantment of the magical bullet archer greatly amplifies his power, proving more precise and superior control. The boy explains that giving magic an element also creates weakness against incompatible ones. He firmly states that fire, for example, is vulnerable to ice and water, revealing the disadvantage of his brother's power. The brother is stunned to find himself at a disadvantage. The boy suggests he change his attribute, but before he can finish, the other screams in rage and launches another flame-covered attack. The boy activates an enhancement spell and propels himself forward at great speed. The ground cracks beneath his feet as his brother watches in shock, unable to react. The boy charges and lands a direct hit on his brother. He explains that magic can also be imbued within the body itself, strengthening muscles and maximizing physical power. Furious, the brother counterattacks, shouting for him to stop acting like he knows everything. He unleashes a powerful blast, shaking the ground while the boy dodges at full speed. Frustrated at being unable to hit him, the brother screams in anger. Seeing the boy's speed, he decides to imitate him and activates his own enhancement spell, determined to match his strength. The attempt backfires. His body can't handle the magical pressure, and one of his legs breaks under the strain. The boy looks at him calmly, saying he wanted to warn him not to try that. Wounded but stubborn, the brother tries to stand with the staff in hand. Even though his body is at its limit, he insists on continuing. The boy explains that the technique he's trying to use requires extremely advanced magical control, something he hasn't yet mastered. The brother screams his name in desperation, unable to accept defeat. The boy looks at him firmly, clenches his fist, and asks if he finally understands the difference between them. With determination, the boy channels his magic and shows his brother the proper way to use it. Empowering his arms with magic, he throws a direct punch that lands with great force, proving his complete mastery. The boy declares the battle over as his brother lies defeated on the ground. However, filled with rage and blood on his lips, the brother slowly rises, accusing him of trying to take everything away once again. The brother bitterly recalls how his life changed after his younger brother was born. Filled with jealousy and resentment, he screams that from that moment on, he lost everything: his father's attention, recognition, and even his magical talent. The scene shows a character breaking down, yelling at his brother for always taking everything away from him. He admits he thought he could finally surpass his brother using a special power he worked hard to get, but even with it, he failed. The other brother listens quietly, showing no anger, just silence, and maybe a bit of regret. The older brother stands up and, looking down, apologizes. The younger brother, still on the ground and clearly not expecting this, is left shocked and speechless by the sudden apology. The younger brother says he can't forgive what happened, but admits that in the past, when he was with the Marquis family, he acted like his brother didn't exist. He remembers those moments, realizing how much he ignored him, which surprises the older brother. He remembers how back then, his only focus was increasing his magical power. He didn't care about anything else, even though he and his brother lived together and were always around each other. Despite being siblings, he never tried to learn anything about his brother, and honestly, he just didn't want to know. He admits that what happened between them can't be undone. But after meeting different people and learning from them, he changed. He realized you can't master magic just by watching. It's about real experience. Now, at least he wants to be honest about how he feels. The older brother sincerely apologizes, admitting he's really sorry for everything. The younger brother gets upset, telling him not to apologize now after everything that happened, asking him to stop. The younger brother clenches his fists, crying and yelling that this apology is the cruelest thing because it only makes him feel even more miserable. The younger brother breaks down, crying on the ground. He thinks to himself that if he had ever had a real conversation with his brother back when they were part of the Flembreed family, maybe things would have been different. He wonders if they could have had a normal sibling relationship, but now knows it's too late to change anything. As he looks back, someone else appears in the distance, watching the scene unfold. The older brother notices Prince Aster watching from above. He stands up, determined, and says to himself that he still hasn't finished what he needs to do. Then he walks away, leaving his brother behind. He faces forward with determination, ready to end all the grudges and conflicts he's carried from the past. It's time to settle things, once and for all. A girl stands with some knights outside a large building, looking surprised as someone approaches her. She holds a handkerchief, clearly waiting for or thinking about someone important. Katia calls out, relieved to see him safe. He reassures her and the others, saying Chris has been defeated and probably won't be fighting anymore. Everyone relaxes, realizing the worst is over. He asks Katia about the village. She explains that the soldiers arrived soon after they separated and have mostly put out the fires. The villagers are safe, though things are still tense. Katia seems relieved but also emotional as she looks at the people they managed to help. Katia, visibly shaken, explains there's a noble's mansion nearby where the villagers can find shelter. She's already sent a messenger. Watching the aftermath is tough for everyone, but especially for her. The main character quietly comforts Katia as she holds back tears. They move away from the village ruins to sit quietly together. Katia admits she's been shaking ever since she saw the village burn, thinking she must seem pathetic. She's clearly still deeply affected by everything that happened. Katia blames herself, thinking many people almost died because of her. She wonders why she feels so weak, even though the villagers were saved thanks to Sarah's help. She struggles with guilt, questioning her own strength. Katia admits she always wanted to be like her mother, but the more she tries, the more she realizes she can't. Her mother's encouragement to become a great aristocrat now feels more like a curse. Katia worries that if she keeps pushing herself like this, she'll end up resenting her mother. He tells Katia to keep believing in her feelings, reminding her that the determination she's always had is still there and hasn't been broken. He wants her to stay true to herself and keep chasing those dreams, just like she always has. He's given a powerful magic called Hermes by his master, but is warned not to use it unless absolutely necessary. This magic is tied to his master's true identity, and using it will reveal who she really is. He's told he'll be spending time in the royal capital from now on, but to only use this spell if things get truly desperate. He activates the magic, declaring its power and chanting the spell. Light bursts out, and he calls on the magic to set itself free, reaching the ends of the world. Katia looks on in awe as the spell is unleashed. Magic feathers and swirling energy fill the air as he completes the spell, announcing the technique, Great Seamless Eagle, Hraesvelgr. The power fully activates, showing its true form. Katia is shocked to see the giant magical wings. She realizes it's a powerful bloodline magic, and he confirms it's from his master, Rose, the Sky Witch. They soar into the sky together, carried by the magic. He explains that Rose, also known as Roselia Kirsch von Justia, is not just his master but a legendary mage, the third princess of the previous generation and the greatest triple aptitude mage ever. She was so extraordinary that she was exiled from the capital, but to him, she's the mage he respects most in the world. While soaring in the sky with Katia, he remembers all the things his master taught him. One of the most important questions she asked during his training was, "What does magic mean to you?" This question stuck with him, shaping his view of magic. At first, he couldn't answer what magic meant to him. After a lot of thinking, he finally finds his answer. For him, magic is a story. Katia is surprised by this perspective as they continue flying together into the sunset. He explains that every magic is born from someone's story and wish. When you recreate magic with the primordial inscription, you can see why it was created and what the creator wanted. In the end, you realize that the root of all magic is feelings and desires. That's what magic really is. He asks Katia what she thinks the original wish behind the magic Great Seamless Eagle was. Katia guesses maybe it was to help move around or for practical combat use, since Rose, the Sky Witch, used it to fly and defeat many enemies. She tries to reason out the true intention behind creating such a powerful spell. He explains that the true wish behind the magic was simple. "I want to soar through the sky." It's a pure and passionate desire. While analyzing the magic, he could feel the creator's emotions so clearly. He tells Katia he understands how hard it is to chase ideals you can't reach, connecting her struggles to the same kind of dream. He admits that chasing a dream you can't reach feels like torture, but encourages Katia by saying that once she overcomes everything and her wish finally comes true, the view will be amazing. He wants to see the moment she reaches her goal and hopes she'll let him be there to witness her story. He tells Katia that since the day she encouraged him at the cell, he's always admired the way she is. As he remembers that moment, Katia is touched and wonders if she'll ever be able to create something as beautiful as that memory. He reassures Katia that she can do it, reminding her she's not alone, he'll be by her side. She smiles, feeling comforted and hopeful as they face the future together. Herm suddenly calls out to Katia, surprising her. He says there's something really important he needs to tell her. Watching the beautiful scenery with her, he realizes something big about his own feelings. Herm thinks about the true value of Katia's magic, Hell of Salvation. He's about to reveal what he believes that real value is, hinting it's something much deeper than just its power. Chris, wounded and bleeding, wonders why he couldn't win against Herm, even though they both use the same magic, the magic bullet archer. He's left questioning what makes Herm different and what he's lacking. Chris is shocked as he watches Herm walk away, wondering what Herm has been doing for the past 5 years to become so strong. Meanwhile, Prince Aster arrives, and everyone is surprised by his presence. Prince Aster looks down at Chris and bluntly tells him he lost in a pretty pathetic way. While someone rushes to heal Chris's wound, Aster points out that, in the end, Chris is just all talk and couldn't back it up. Prince Aster orders Chris to leave right after his wounds are treated, warning him not to show his face again. If Chris ever comes back, Aster threatens to burn him to ashes with his flames. The message is clear, he won't get a second chance. Chris watches Aster and the others leave with the soldiers. Left behind, he stays silent and starts to walk away by himself, looking defeated and alone in the forest. Chris keeps walking alone through the forest as sunlight breaks through the trees. Down below, a horse-drawn wagon waits on the path, ready to take him away. Chris tells Katia he'll give orders to the soldiers to get everyone out of the village. The villagers are huddled together, looking worried and anxious as they wait. Chris quietly notices that everyone seems really concerned. Chris gets surprised when his brother shows up and calls out to him. His brother says he didn't come to fight and tries to keep things calm, saying there's just one thing he wants to talk about. The two brothers face each other seriously. Chris's brother says there's one thing he really wants to ask, no matter what. Chris, still dealing with his defeat, asks his brother what he really wants to know. Despite using the same bloodline magic, why did he lose? He admits he hasn't stopped thinking about it. Then, looking serious, he asks what exactly his brother has been doing for the last 5 years. He answers that he just kept learning and training in magic non-stop. Chris, not satisfied, pushes further. He wonders if that's really all, or if there was something special that let his brother get such powerful magic. Then, he asks if his brother knows what bloodline magic is really made of. Hermes decides it's better to show rather than explain, and brings out a magic book, a copy of the one he usually uses. Chris is surprised and confused, thinking Hermes is about to pass his magic to someone else just like that. Hermes explains that the primordial inscription isn't some exclusive magic, it's made for anyone to use, and even Chris has the right to use it. He tells Chris to expand his magic, pointing out where to use the magic bullet archer. Chris is a bit surprised, but starts to follow Hermes' instructions. Hermes checks on Chris, asking if he can see anything after expanding his magic. Chris looks shocked as he focuses on the floating inscription, clearly surprised by what he's witnessing. Chris is overwhelmed as mysterious symbols and magic circles appear in front of him, covering his vision. He reacts in pain or shock, grabbing his face. Hermes stands nearby, still holding the book, watching Chris's intense reaction. Chris is dizzy and confused after seeing all the information. He realizes what he saw was a complicated, unreadable magic language filled with symbols and formulas, layered through multiple circles. Hermes tells him that's what he always sees, and if Chris really tried to understand it all, his head would explode. Hermes tells Chris that the magic he was born with and always used is actually built on a really complicated structure. Chris is shocked, since he never imagined it was that complex. Hermes explains that even with all that information, Chris still uses his magic naturally. Chris is in disbelief, realizing that what everyone sees as a simple God-given power is way more detailed and technical than he thought. Chris loses his cool and says that saying anyone can use it is a lie. He thinks it's impossible to reach that level, no matter how hard you try, and calls it absurd to need so much effort just to use lineage magic. Hermes stays calm and says he really didn't have anything special. He just kept working at it, every day, for 5 years. He repeats that anyone could do it if they put in the time, but for him, it took 5 years. Chris, frustrated, says it was Hermes who made his efforts feel pointless. He's upset and questions if Hermes really thinks anyone can do what he did. Hermes, calm, says he went through the same thing. When he found out he didn't have lineage magic, he also felt like all his effort was for nothing. Chris thinks to himself that Hermes never gave up on magic, even after everything. He wonders why Hermes went so far for magic. Hermes simply says, with a smile, that it's because he loves magic. Chris, now realizing something important, looks surprised and thinks, I get it now. Hermes has something I don't. Suddenly, someone runs up and calls out, Big brother. A little girl runs up and happily says, I finally found you. Big brother was looking for you. She notices the conversation and asks if they were talking about something important. Hermes smiles and tells her it's nothing and that he'll go with her right away. He then walks off with her, while Chris is left sitting on the ground, quietly watching them. The girl stays by Hermes' side, showing a close sibling bond. Chris is sitting on the grass alone, looking defeated and lost in thought. He admits to himself that he lost, and this time, he was beaten directly. He feels like he's lost everything and has nothing left, showing just how much this loss hit him. The panels really focus on his emptiness and the weight of losing to Hermes. Chris finds the magic book that Hermes left behind. He looks shocked at first, then thinks about Hermes and feels like he can hear his voice in his head saying, try it if you think you can. Chris wonders if Hermes left the book there on purpose, almost like a challenge for him to keep moving forward. Chris gets fired up. After looking at the book, he shouts that he'll do it, no matter how many years it takes. Realizing that it's something anyone can achieve, he convinces himself that he can do it too. He's determined to keep trying, full of hope and energy. The villagers are getting ready to leave in horse-drawn wagons. Katie stands a bit apart, waving goodbye with a gentle smile. The little girl waves back cheerfully, and the group heads out, leaving Katie quietly watching them go. Katie looks determined and tells Herm that she's made up her mind she won't run away anymore. She's decided not to let another tragedy like this happen again, and she's going to end her conflict with Prince Aster once and for all. Katie knows someone might get hurt again, but she's set on moving forward. Herm agrees with her decision and says that, since it's the prince, they don't know what tricks he might use. Plus, Sarah is with him. Herm then tells Katie he won't let her do this alone. If that's her choice, he'll fight with her to the end. This makes Katie smile, feeling supported. The soldiers report that Prince Aster is hiding in a nearby abandoned castle. Katie says it's time to go, and tells Herm that now is the moment to show their justice. They both look determined and ready to move out. A soldier informs Prince Aster that Katie and her servant are heading towards the castle. The prince is interested and slightly amused, while the girl beside him is surprised to hear that Katie is on her way. The prince is told that the criminals are coming to the castle themselves. A soldier asks if they should capture them, but the prince says there's no need. Instead, he tells them to give Katie and her group a grand welcome, looking pretty confident about it. Katie and her companion keep moving forward with serious looks. Katie says they'll keep going until everyone understands who really stands for justice. Katie and her companion walk through the castle, surprised they were let in so easily. She thinks the prince must be sure of his own strength and has never doubted his victory. Katie says she'll accept his challenge. Katie and her friend enter a courtyard where Prince Aster and his companion are waiting for them. Aster welcomes them, saying, "You're finally here. You're finally here." The confrontation is about to begin. Katie sees Sarah and says she's glad to see she's okay. Sarah looks surprised and calls out to her. The prince steps in and asks Katie if she's finally ready to admit her crimes since she showed up willingly. Katie's answer is clear. Absolutely not. Katie steps forward and challenges Aster directly, declaring she came just to face him. Aster is surprised, questioning if she really plans to take him on alone and mocking her as the defective girl. Katie tells Aster she's not the same person he remembers and challenges him to settle things one-on-one, fairly. Aster laughs at her, calling her arrogant and mocking her lack of control over her own magic. Even so, he accepts her challenge. Aster, full of confidence, declares he'll burn both Katie's sins and pride to ashes and tells her to face him in battle. Katie walks away, determined, while someone quietly calls her name with concern. Aster orders his guards to handle Hermes. Katie gets ready to leave, and Hermes wishes her luck, reminding her of his earlier words and saying he'll pray for her victory. Katie and Aster walk into the castle, while Hermes is held back by the soldiers. Hermes asks Sarah if she'll fight against him as Aster's ally. Sarah hesitates, looking unsure of what to do. The soldiers step in, telling her to stay back and insisting they're enough to defeat Hermes. Hermes shuts down the soldiers, saying he wasn't talking to them. Sarah quietly calls out to him, and he thinks about how he's been thinking about his true feelings ever since. Hermes remembers how he used to fear Prince Aster. He always worried about what would happen to him, his family, and friends if he upset Aster. Now, seeing the prince sitting on a throne, Hermes recalls how Katya's magic attack left him seriously wounded this time. Sarah hears the prince accuse Katya of betraying her, but she refuses to believe it, convinced Katya isn't capable of something like that. Sarah decides she doesn't want to keep hurting those she cares about or keep following the prince's lies. She makes up her mind to stop being his accomplice. Sarah finds herself running toward the burning village. She sees the terrified villagers and comes face to face with the prince, feeling her legs shake with fear, but realizes she can't keep living in fear and knows she has to act, even if she's scared. Sarah thinks about fighting with honesty and putting real feelings into her magic. She wonders if seeing the other person's magic would help her understand them better, and she considers that it might be possible. Sarah asks if she can see what kind of magic the other person has, remembering when they talked about the power of feelings. The other person explains their magic is focused on healing and protection. Sarah, surrounded by soldiers, tells Hermes that she'll prove she can withstand all his attacks. Hermes accepts the challenge and says he will be her opponent. Hermes charges, shouting that he's coming, but the knights block his path and tell him they won't let him through. Hermes dodges and attacks the knights, but they receive support from Paulina, who heals them with magic. Surprised, the knights recover quickly and notice Paulina's magical power and skill. The knights see Paulina as a goddess in battle, able to keep her team standing as long as she has magical energy, making them almost invincible. Hermes recognizes the challenge and decides to fight seriously. Hermes prepares his magic, activates the 6 sacred bows, and launches a strong attack. Paulina tries to stop it with her own defensive magic, while the knights are astonished by the attack's power. Hermes' attack is strong and fast, but Paulina realizes it has its limitation. She encourages the knights to stay calm and watch the trajectory to dodge it. Hermes notices they quickly understand how his magic works and is surprised at how fast they figured it out. The knights attack together and manage to corner Hermes, breaking his magical defense. Paulina realizes they're pressuring him and thinks they could defeat him if they keep it up. Hermes, however, stays calm and shows no concern. Hermes changes his way of fighting and surprises Paulina and the knights with much more precise and faster movements. Paulina fails to react in time and realizes that, until recently, Hermes' attacks were simple and straight, but now he's using a more advanced technique. Hermes proves that his true ability is to grow and become stronger while fighting, perfecting his technique in the middle of battle. Although he was exiled from the capital for not having bloodline magic, everyone now notices that he possesses astonishing power. The spectators are shocked to see that Katya's supposedly useless servant is actually very strong. Those born with bloodline magic can't believe Hermes managed to obtain such powerful magic purely through effort. They're stunned to see him fight and use magic with such freedom and joy. Sarah thinks she feels envy. Hermes isn't just skilled, he has something even more important, something probably no one else can surpass. In the end, The knights admit their complete defeat before him. Katia attacks with magic, releasing a vast amount of power, but she feels she still hasn't reached her limit and can give more. Aster watches her effort without much expression, confident in himself. Aster acknowledges that Katia has become stronger, but tells her she won't be able to defeat him with attacks of that level. Then, bored and uninterested, he decides to end the fight. Aster unleashes a devastating attack that destroys part of the castle. He then calmly walks away through the rubble without looking back. Aster looks at the castle's remains and seems disappointed. He thought the fight would be more exciting, but he ends up criticizing his opponent for still being a failure until the end. Katia appears unharmed through the smoke, surprising Aster. He can't believe she withstood his flames, doubting that the defective girl managed to come out unscathed. Katia stands firm with determination and shouts that the battle isn't over, declaring that this has only just begun. The enemy mocks, saying his opponent shouldn't get full of herself just because she managed to dodge once. He launches a powerful attack. Katia, standing at the front line, tries to withstand the blow. The soldiers fall, but Katia keeps resisting, thinking this won't be enough to bring her down. The antagonist declares that everyone present will witness the punishment he's about to deliver. An ally watches everything and shouts in worry for Katia. The boy remembers Hermes' words and realizes the true value of Katia's magic, called Hell of Salvation. Katia is surprised to hear this, while he understands that he has finally grasped the meaning of that power. The boy explains that the true power of Katia's magic isn't just about summoning and controlling souls to cast spells, but about communicating with the dead. Katia realizes she has been using her magic the wrong way all this time, shocked by the revelation of the power's true origin. The boy confirms that Katia was only using a fraction of her magic's true effect. He advises her to return to the roots of her power and try to communicate with the souls she summons. Katia, surprised, asks what she should do now in light of this new revelation. The boy explains that Katia must communicate with the souls as equals, understanding their feelings and fighting alongside them, not treating them as mere subordinates under her control. Katia feels uncertain, doubting if she'll succeed or if the souls will respond, but he reassures her, saying he believes she will. The boy says he trusts Katia's feelings and believes that if she truly wishes to speak with the souls, she'll be able to touch their hearts. He mentions that the word gyus, salvation, comes from a distant country and represents a place where everyone finds peace. He also imagines that the person who created this magic must have been very kind. The boy explains that this magic gives a home to the wandering souls of the dead, which is why it bears that name. Katia reflects on the fate of those souls and where they would find salvation. The boy adds that the inscription of this spell carries that special meaning. Katia gathers her courage, stretches out her hands, and activates her magic, shouting the spell's name, Underworld of Salvation. Katia releases a massive surge of magic while calling upon the souls for help, saying she wants to defeat the prince and prove her justice. She pleads with the souls to lend her their strength in this decisive moment. The souls respond to Katia's plea, agreeing to help her and promising to fight by her side. Katia is shocked and deeply moved as she realizes she succeeded in communicating with them. The souls summoned by Katia charge forward under her command to attack the enemy. The prince is stunned to see the power of the souls fighting alongside her. The prince tries to defend himself from their attacks but grows frustrated and furious at their strength. He yells at them, calling them insolent, realizing he's running out of options before Katia's power and the spirits. The prince admits Katia's magic is strong but insists it's still not enough to defeat him. He uses a spell to resurrect allies, surprising Katia, who recognizes the souls as ones previously summoned by her own magic. The souls move to protect Katia and fight again. Katia realizes that even though she had never truly tried to connect with the dead, they responded to her feelings and are now doing their best for her. Katia tearfully thanks the souls for their help. The others watch in astonishment, commenting on how incredible her new power is. A girl notices that the souls act innocently, almost like children. The boy explains that, because they resonated with Katia's heart, only the innocent side of the souls was drawn out, leaving behind any malice. He says they're not exactly the complete personalities of the people, but rather a pure part of them. That's why the souls took on that innocent form. He admits he's not entirely sure how it all works. The prince grows enraged by the constant attacks from the souls and realizes they won't stop appearing. One of the characters notes that even though the prince's magic is powerful, it won't be enough to defeat Katia in her current state. Katia attacks while keeping her distance from the prince, using smart positioning to prevent him from getting close. The souls in the troop formation turn the tide of battle in her favor. The prince, meanwhile, can only cast magic without managing to close the gap between them. The characters conclude that the prince has always solved everything through brute strength, thanks to his talent and powerful magic, but he's never faced someone of equal level. That's why he doesn't know how to use strategy or push himself to overcome challenges. It's said that people who have always won since birth become fragile when they finally face disadvantage. The prince, now surrounded by the souls, begins to feel that weakness for the first time. The prince is overwhelmed by the souls summoned by Katia and screams desperately, calling out her name. Katia watches the scene, astonished by the result of her newfound power. The prince realizes the power of his flames is fading. Another character explains that his magical energy has been completely exhausted, which was expected after using so much magic continuously. With the prince weakened and out of magic, Katia advances and lands a direct hit, using the soul's power. He can no longer defend himself, being completely overpowered in the fight. Even after being gravely wounded by Astur's attack, the prince tried to keep resisting, but he realized he had already been defeated. As he accepted his loss in disbelief, Astur stood her ground, ready to bring the battle to an end once and for all. Even in defeat, the prince refused to accept the outcome and declared that he would never lose to someone he considered beneath him. Consumed by his pride, he gathered the last remnants of his power and chose to keep fighting, ignoring the severe wounds covering his body. The prince attempted one final desperate strike to turn the tide of the battle, but Astur immediately saw through his intentions and rushed forward to stop him before he could put his plan into action. The energy released by the prince began to surge unnaturally, astonishing everyone present. As they sensed that sudden explosion of magical power, the spectators grew anxious, unable to understand what was about to happen. Even while restrained by Katia's magical chains, the prince looked down on her strength and claimed that nothing could stop his rise. Katia, however, refused to let up and continued holding him back, doing everything she could to prevent his power from spiraling completely out of control. After breaking free from the chains, the prince shattered his own limits and unleashed an overwhelming amount of magical power. Surrounded by a dark aura, he activated his ultimate bloodline magic, causing the entire arena to tremble beneath the force of his attack. Hero remembered the teachings of his master and explained that the power of the bloodline remained sealed because its full strength exceeded the limits of the human body. If those seals were ever completely broken, the user would eventually be consumed by their own magic. Hero realized that the prince had unleashed the supreme form of bloodline magic, a forbidden technique capable of breaking the seals placed upon the power possessed by only a handful of individuals. According to his master's teachings, this was the ultimate manifestation of that power, one capable of granting devastating strength at the cost of the user's own life. The moment Katia's allies witnessed the prince's terrifying power, they rushed to shield her and urged her to fall back. At that same instant, the prince raised his sword and began casting his overwhelming magic, pushing the tension of the battle to its absolute peak. With nothing more than a single swing of his sword, the prince unleashed a devastating attack that seemed to carry the power of every spirit. The force of the magic annihilated everything in its path, leaving Katia speechless before such an absurd display of strength. The prince's attack tore across the arena before crashing into the castle, triggering a massive explosion of destruction. Once the dust settled, Katia was still standing among the ruins, while Hero and the others watched in shock, desperately trying to determine whether she had managed to survive the devastating blow. Even after unleashing such overwhelming power, the prince remained consumed by frustration. Convinced that all of his efforts had become meaningless after being surpassed by others, he resolved to use his newly awakened strength without caring about the consequences. Exhausted and with no strength left to continue, Katia admitted that she had reached her limit against such overwhelming power. At that very moment, Hero stepped forward, making Katia realize that her final hope had finally arrived. The moment Katia saw Hero take the front line, her confidence returned, and she realized that her fear had vanished. Even in the face of the prince's crushing power, she renewed her determination and resolved to keep fighting alongside him until the very end. Hero's confidence restored Katia's determination. Convinced that victory was still within reach, she thanked him for his support, regained her courage, and chose to fight until the end alongside her spirits. Even after regaining her resolve, Katia continued to be overwhelmed by the prince's crushing power. As she endured his relentless attacks, the prince insisted that her defeat was inevitable and repeatedly tried to force her to abandon the fight. Katia refused to accept the prince's twisted view of the world and declared that she would keep fighting until the very end. Firmly believing that strength alone did not determine a person's worth, she faced yet another of his attacks without taking a single step back. Katia gathered every ounce of her determination and swore to prove that even someone without extraordinary talent could still achieve their dreams. Driven by that conviction, she resolved to win the battle no matter what it cost. The prince unleashed a devastating destruction spell that struck Katia head-on, hurling her across the battlefield. Witnessing the scene, Hero and the others were overcome with despair as they watched her collapse without being able to fight back. Gravely wounded, Katia realized that she could barely move one of her arms. Even while suffering through unbearable pain and with almost no strength remaining, she refused to surrender and resolved to keep fighting. Standing on the brink of defeat, Katia saw a vision of her mother appearing before her with a gentle smile. The memory awakened long-buried emotions and gave Katia the strength she needed to refuse defeat. As Katia approached the image of her mother, she realized that her presence had always remained within her heart. Guided by that cherished memory, she heard her name being called and felt her determination reignite once again. As she remembered everything she had overcome to protect the kingdom, Katia heard her mother acknowledge all of her efforts and praise her strength. Those heartfelt words strengthened her spirit and renewed her courage to continue fighting. Even though she could no longer embrace her daughter, Katia's mother comforted her with words of encouragement and expressed how proud she was of everything Katia had achieved. Deeply moved, Katia regained her strength as she realized that her mother's love and support had always remained with her. As she watched the image of her mother fade away, Katia understood that she had always been by her side, protecting and guiding her every step. Holding on to that certainty deep within her heart, she gathered her remaining strength and once again faced the enemy. Even after rekindling her determination, Katia confronted the prince's devastating attack head-on and managed to block part of the blow. Seeing that she was still standing, the prince was left astonished, while Katia remained steadfast without showing the slightest intention of retreating. Even while being relentlessly pressured by the prince's constant attacks, Katia continued to endure without taking a single step back. Sustained by Hero's faith and by the trust of everyone who believed in her, her determination transformed into the strength she needed to face the enemy until the very end. Inspired by her mother's words, Katia found the strength to launch a counterattack and finally break through the prince's defenses. For the first time since his transformation, her attack pierced through his overwhelming power and caught him completely by surprise. Katia seized the opening and struck the prince with a decisive blow. As a result, the forbidden power sustaining him began to fade away, leaving the prince in despair as he realized that the magic supporting him was finally coming to an end. Even as his power continued to disappear, the prince refused to accept defeat and struggled until the very last moment. While he steadily lost control of the forbidden magic, Katia and the others watched closely, realizing that the battle was finally nearing its conclusion. Hero realized that the prince remained trapped by the distorted belief that he was someone chosen above everyone else. Even with defeat closing in, he remained incapable of abandoning that conviction, one rooted in an overwhelming sense of pride. Hero understood that the prince's strength came from his unwavering belief that he was one of the chosen. As reinforcements finally arrived to assess the situation, everyone realized that this twisted conviction was the true source of his power. As the soldiers evacuated everyone due to the castle's collapse, Hero noticed that the prince was beginning to transform into something even more monstrous. Faced with that terrifying transformation, everyone realized that the danger was far from over. Katia tried to convince him to give up after realizing that his body had already reached its absolute limit, but the prince ignored every warning. Obsessed with his own convictions, he chose to continue fighting even if it meant completely destroying himself. Even with his body on the verge of total collapse, the prince refused to accept defeat and attempted to awaken an even greater power. Consumed by obsession, he unleashed yet another supreme spell in the hope of surpassing his limits at any cost. The prince released an even more destructive wave of power against everyone present. Faced with the overwhelming attack, Hero raised a powerful barrier to protect his allies, successfully holding back the magic long enough to prevent a complete tragedy. While trying to protect the others from the prince's attack, one of the soldiers was consumed by the flames of his magic. Unable to withstand such overwhelming power, his body began burning from the inside out, leaving Hero and the others horrified by the terrifying sight. The flames of the forbidden magic began spreading among the soldiers, consuming their bodies before everyone's eyes. As Katia realized that the prince's power was putting even more lives at risk, she was left in shock by the horrifying severity of the situation. Katia tried to restrain the soldiers consumed by the flames, but she quickly realized that they no longer had control over their own bodies. Completely dominated by the prince's magic, they began attacking without any awareness, turning the battlefield into an even greater disaster. Katia condemned the prince for sacrificing his own soldiers just to continue fighting, but he showed not the slightest hint of remorse. Completely consumed by the cursed flames, the soldiers attacked against their own will, while the prince treated them as nothing more than disposable tools. Realizing that the soldiers were suffering against their own will, Katya hesitated to strike them down. Just before she could be hit, Hero appeared and protected her with a powerful barrier, taking the front line as the two searched for a way to save the innocent lives caught in the prince's magic. Hero told Katya not to blame herself and took responsibility for the situation. Determined to protect everyone, he stepped onto the front lines and entrusted the rest to Katya, while facing the soldiers controlled by the cursed flames. Even while surrounded by soldiers being consumed by the flames, Hero stood his ground before the prince. Completely confident in his absolute magic, the prince looked down on Hero and declared that nothing could ever stop him. Hero confronted the prince's supreme magic with a powerful defensive barrier, enduring the relentless assault despite the immense pressure. Certain of his own superiority, the prince proclaimed that he possessed a power reserved exclusively for the chosen, never imagining that Hero still had a way to counter such a terrifying threat. The prince revealed that he had been waiting for this very moment for a long time. Consumed by the desire to erase the humiliation he had suffered in the past, he believed that he would finally crush Hero with the overwhelming power he had spent so long striving to obtain. Hero calmly analyzed the prince's magic and gradually understood exactly how that incredible power functioned. After uncovering the true nature of the technique, he finally found a way to counter it, leaving the prince completely shocked and unable to believe what had just happened.